Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the regular meeting of council for June 7th, 2017. And I'll call to order regular council meeting for June 7th, 2017. And I will confirm the agenda. And Councillor Graychuk, if I may ask you if you have any items.
I have nothing, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Fuel?
I have nothing, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson?
Your Worship, do you need to know if there are administrative inquiries? Not really, right?
No, not on administrative inquiries.
Then I have nothing.
No, yes, you do. You have an emergent item?
I do have an emergent item, yes, I forgot to follow my orders from you. I have an emergent item, and I have a question also to administration as well.
Okay, thank you. So did you need any details in regards to that emergent item? Okay.
I have to get my notes. It is related to Park Road. And the emergent item is with regards to salary for, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Sobel?
I have nothing to add, Your Worship. I do have one item under questions.
Thank you. Councillor Deputy Mayor Blokeland?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing to add.
Thank you. Councillor Walls?
Nothing, Your Worship.
Thank you. And I have nothing. Administration?
Your Worship, there is one item. It's under urgent matters. It is included on your agenda. It was just submitted late. It's item 10.1, air quality testing. Just according to procedure, council has to adopt that as well.
Thank you very much.
I think that's 11.1, is it?
It likely is.
Yes,
It's
Your
likely
Worship.
11.1, yes. So if we accept the agenda, we don't have to do the 2/3 majority for the emergent items? Okay.
Your Worship.
Councillor Walls?
Your Worship, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Thank you very much.
I'd move that council accept the agenda as amended.
Thank you. We have a motion to accept the agenda as amended. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. First item on our agenda is delegations. We have Mr. Kyle Gerhardt to give us some information in regards to Open Farm Days. Sir, would you like to come forward?
Hello, everyone. I just want to say thank you guys for taking this time to meet with us. I'd like to introduce to you guys to Nick Patterson. Just so everybody knows, I'm co-founder and co-owner of Origin Malting and Origin Brewing Company, the brewery going up just in Strathmore here. Nick is our new brewer that we brought on. Nick's from Strathmore here. So basically, I just kind of wanted to spread things out a little bit. I kind of want to tell you guys a little bit of our story, since I haven't really had a chance to talk in front of you guys. Talk about Open Farm Days and talk about the community initiatives we're planning for Strathmore. So basically, does anybody here really know what we're doing? I mean, if you guys have any questions, feel free, and I could give, if you don't, I can give a quick little blurb about who we are and what we're doing.
Well, why don't you just give us an idea so the general public can understand who you are, what you're doing, and why we're very pleased that you're here.
Okay, perfect. So again, I'm Kyle. My business partner, Josh Mitchelluk, he wasn't able to be here today. He's in meetings in Banff right now. Last November, Josh and we found some malting equipment down in Fargo. We used to work for a grain company, and we thought, you know what, this equipment kind of makes sense to bridge the gap between farmers and brewers, right? We were looking at value-add options for a company. In the malt industry, there's only the really, really small or the really, really big. So when we seen this equipment, we thought, you know what, if it's as good as what these guys are saying they are, it's something we have to go look at. So we flew down to the States, we looked at it, and we realized it was as good as what they said they were. So when Josh and we flew back to Canada, we had a few conversations like, you know, do we distribute the equipment, or can we actually make a business out of this? So we went back down to Fargo, and we made a deal with the guys down there that manufacture the equipment to have sole distribution rights for Canada. Since there is only 2 companies now that actually make malting equipment, there's Casper Schultz, which is in the Netherlands, and then there's Intelligent Malt down in the States. So we thought, you know what, if we can get sole distribution rights, we can actually make a viable business out of this. So we got it. We found a few investors. So yeah, we're starting a malting company right in Strathmore. We're adding a brewery on just because it started out, you know, we thought it'd be kind of cool if brewers, because that's what we're selling to, the malt, if they could come to our facility and taste beer that's actually made of malt, our malt, so they know. I mean, that's the only way for guys to really be able to tell what it tastes like is have a beer. So when we talked to AGLC, they said the only way you guys can actually do that is if you have a commercial kitchen. We're like, well, at this point in time, that's not something we're ready to invest in. Is there any other options we have? And they said, well, if it's brewed on site, then you have no issues. You can sell your beer. Other breweries can come in and brew with you guys. So then Josh and I, we found a brewery down in California. So we jumped on a plane, we went down there, and we bought it. When we came back, we went around and talked to every brewery in Alberta, which right now there's 54 breweries in Alberta that are in commission. There's another 50-some AGLC licenses pulled for breweries that are opening up within the next 12 years, or next 12 months, sorry. Every one of these guys wants to come and brew in Strathmore. So that's gonna bring a huge amount of tourism and everything to Strathmore, because the way the beer market works is Calgary and West, it's so convoluted. Guys are fighting so hard to get their beer in liquor stores. Well, out in Strathmore and east of Calgary, guys are having issues getting their beer into liquor stores because people don't know who they are. So by brewers coming out here, brewing it, we can name the tap after them, whether it's Olds College or whoever it is. Then people, anybody can come have a beer. And the next time they go to Calgary, they know where to go. So when they go to their liquor store, Co-op, Sobeys, whatever it is, they know who to ask for when they want to get that in, right? So that was a huge enticement for brewers to come out here. Then, I thought, well, we started building our business model for our brewery, and it's like, okay, well, it'd be really cool if we had a truly Strathmore beer. What does that entail? My business partner, he's done a bunch of home brewing and stuff, but we didn't feel as if we were ready to make the best beer. So that's when we went and headhunted Nick and brought Nick on. So basically, that's kind of what we're doing. As far as our community initiatives, number one, we've been approached by several different organizations at this point in time to actually make beer for them for their charity events and their fundraisers. So far, we've been approached by Drew Gregory. I don't know, everybody's heard of Drew. He wants us to make a beer for him so he can just promote it and tell it. Again, on every single beer can that goes out, it's going to say brewed by Origin Malting and Brewing Company, proudly brewed in Strathmore, Alberta. We're going to be promoting Strathmore very, very hard. Aspen Crossing wants us to make a mainstay beer for them. Marigold, we actually got a phone call yesterday that I was not expecting. Marigold Library System, they want to do, it's called Beer and Books. They talked to us, so that was, yeah, I wasn't expecting that one, but that's super cool. Then the Strathmore Rec Center, they're getting beer from Calgary right now. And I met with a guy last week, and he said, why are we bringing our beer from Calgary when we have a brewery here? So we're going to do probably, because they have 3 taps apparently. We do probably 2 just, easy drinking beers, and we're going to do a wheat beer for the Strathmore Wheat Kings. And again, just promote it. And things like that, when we sell it, we're going to give a huge amount of our proceeds back to the Wheat Kings and back to other charitable organizations. Another one we had, apparently I got another phone call yesterday. The Strathmore Egg Society is thinking about doing basically having a beer festival. They want to see the viability of it. They want us to help plan that with them and headline that. So that's another thing we do. 100% of our proceeds would stay within Strathmore into charitable organizations. We're, obviously we are running a business, but, we see that there is that basically that kind of that black layer that people see breweries and they're kind of nervous about it. That's not what we're doing. We're not promoting, people coming to our facility and getting drunk. We're doing this so we can benefit the community, and basically what we're doing. In-house, we are starting this the minute that we open. It's called Crafting Our Community. So anybody from Strathmore can come and actually brew with us. We're going to charge them no money. They're going to sit with Nick, and they're going to go through a full recipe development. So, depending on whatever beer they want to make, they're going to go with Nick. Nick's going to show them how to do it. They're going to have a full brew day, and then when the beer goes through the fermentation process, they're going to come back in, and as long as the beer is good, 100% of that proceed is going to go to, so say anybody came pick, they would actually be able to pick the charity as long as it's from Strathmore. 100% of the proceeds would go to that charity. That is going to be an ongoing charity. We're looking to do that once to twice a month for here on out. So we're really looking to give back to this community as much as possible. But the biggest reason why I'm here, Wendy Gerbrandt is actually here, but I got approached, well, me and Josh did, about Open Farm Days. I'm not sure if anybody really knows what Open Farm Days is, but we are going to be teaming up with Toolshed Brewing Company in Calgary. Up to 2013, there was a tax law that made it almost impossible for small microbreweries to start up. It was either you're really big or you couldn't afford to stay in the business. There's two owners of Toolshed Brewing Company. There's Jeff Orr and Graham Sherman. They were actually both in the military together when they were in Iraq and Afghanistan. They came back at the same time, and they didn't know what else to do. They were kind of just adjusting back to civilian life. So they started brewing out of Graham's tool shed, and they realized that they were making good beer, and they wanted to open a microbrewery. But tax laws, they couldn't afford to do it. So Graham, he started doing some homework, and he realized that there was actually no laws against importing beer. So Graham sent Jeff out to BC. Jeff moved out there. He rented a brewery out there, and every weekend Graham would drive out there, pick up the beer, and drive back. And so basically for about a year he fought with the provincial government and just said, hey, you know what, this is an actual industry. We can do something here. If we follow suit the way the other provinces are, the way the states are, we can actually do something. So basically to say that Jeff is connected and respected, it's an understatement. Jeff and Graham are massive supporters of agriculture. They're one of the true farmer forward breweries. They understand where their commodities come from. I mean, everything that they do comes from a farm, whether it's hops or malt or yeast, right? So we're going to team up with them, and basically what we're going to do, we're having 2 farm tours out in the Strathmore area. There's going to be one at Scott Schiffner's place and one at Hilton Ventures, so Sterling Hilton. So we're going to have all the buses pick everybody up from Calgary. Graham's going to do a lot of our promoting for us, and August 18th and 20th. In the morning, do 2 tours. So they come out, go to Hilton's, then they go to Scott Schiffner's place, and then they come for a brewery. Have about it, he said he could, because we have that big that's it is. And we spend, you know, that's kind of do that. So there'd be one every morning, and they come back for lunch. There'd be 1 tour supper would be the exact same on Monday. Last year at Open Farm Days, Wendy would be able to give the exact number, but I think there was like around 3,000. You know, really big mess, right? Promotes more. People are gonna come here. We truly, the community. People probably do it. That's something we can look with local hotels. So basically, when we get about that, right now we're just waiting on our architect. We should protect every single thing. So, our brewery is right here. Set up.
I know very about
work you really appreciate because my job is wonder if you talk
fund or partially fund this project up to 75%, which would be about 35 to 40K, depending on what the province chooses to fund. That visitor-friendly assessment is a really snapshot of what people think and what people experience in our town when they come here, and Darlis can elaborate a little bit on that. One of the ideas that came actually from the chamber that we're looking at adding is a bus tour, which is an experiential tourism experience for local business and stakeholders to go into other communities and kind of see tourism in other communities from the visitor perspective and get some ideas on how we can bring those to Strathmore. It'll also help identify where our gaps are in tourism service and delivery. That will take us into phase 3, which will be later in 2018, kind of Q4 of 2018, or 17, early 2018, and developing a tourism strategic plan. This plan will lead us into the development of a destination marketing organization who will then implement that tourism strategic plan. I'm going to turn over to Darlis, and she's going to talk about some of the things she's done and answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome.
So this project started about a week ago, and I have received lots of different resources from Tracy, including we've got the Business Vitality Index that was done in 2010, the Council Strategic Plan, the Visitor Survey that was done by CRP. There's the Quality of Life Master Plan and a whole lot of other documents. And so I'm currently in the process of going through all of those documents to see what has been discussed, what has been decided, what has been identified, so that all of these things can be considered when we're moving forward with the tourism plan. One of the things that happens in all communities, including Strathmore, is that people get really excited about businesses, about events, about activities, about projects, but unfortunately they don't always communicate that, or there's not a way to communicate that with everybody else in the community. So for example, today alone, we came across 2 new projects that have to do with attracting visitors to the community and about tourism, but both of those projects are being done in isolation, so to speak. They're not being done in collaboration. And so in order to make sure that all of the resources, not only of council, but the resources of community groups and organizations and individuals and businesses, we want to make sure that they are going to leverage off of each other and they can take the most advantage of one another. So we need to have a clear vision moving forward. So one of the goals in this project is collaboration. And so it is identifying any kind of organization or event or activity, new or existing, that could potentially, A, be bringing visitors to the community, and B, will give people an idea of a brand or give people an idea or an expectation about Strathmore. So I encourage anyone on council and on staff, if you hear of any of those kinds of things, please let me know so that I can immediately get in touch with those people and start to connect people and their ideas so we can all be moving forward. So that's one of the big things with this project that is happening right now. Now, I've already met with Roy in regards to the planning and development workshop that was held and got some great information. I'm on the agenda for the Canada 100, the downtown project. I'm meeting with Angela on Friday. I'm going to the on the spot presentation that's being done on Friday. So again, any of those kinds of things that have anything to do with tourism and visitors, I'm there. So I just need to be made aware. And Tracy's been doing a fabulous job in keeping me informed and getting me in the loop. We are looking at either conducting 3 focus groups or 1 workshop where we would have some breakout smaller groups. We would like council to participate in that, as well as the business community, residents at large, other stakeholders, and community event organizers. And that's to really start getting a base understanding of what do people think of tourism, what are the misconceptions that they have around tourism, where are the gaps in their knowledge or the capacity around tourism, so that we can start addressing that. I know people think that the research and the preparation phase is like, oh my gosh, we have to do this part of it. I got to tell you, I get so excited about this phase because this is where the good stuff comes from. This is where all the ideas are actually generated because you can see what's going well, where the gaps are, and where the possibilities and the opportunities could take you. So I'm really, really excited about getting this first phase looked after. I've provided Tracy with a tourism readiness assessment, and that is a self-assessment for the town to do to look at their in 8 different areas, what is their level of readiness in regards to tourism development. That's going to be a very important document because from that, I'll be able to make recommendations and we'll take actions on how to make sure that the community is that much more tourism ready and strong for when we start implementing everything. And then the last thing I'm just going to quickly touch on is actually in phase 2 is, as Tracy mentioned, the visitor assessment, the visitor-friendly assessment. I am really, really pleased to hear that the Chamber is going to be going forward with being an applicant to get some funding in order for us to do that particular project. This is an invaluable piece of this entire assessment, this entire project, a tourism development project that the town is undertaking, because it gives an objective view in 5 different areas in regards to visitor friendliness, because you can have all the activities and the amenities that you want, but if people are not feeling welcome or they're confused when they come to the community or they can't find their way around, if they don't really understand if there's a real mix of things going on, they're not really understanding what the town represents or what's available, that becomes a real challenge. So I'm really, really happy to hear that we're going to be doing this assessment, and we'll be looking at things like wayfinding, signage, ambiance, visual appeal, friendliness. We'll be doing some mystery shopping in the businesses within the community to find out what people's visitor experiences are. And I'll also be having some people who are from out of town who are going to come and do some experiential activities as well in the community so that we can get their opinion from the outside coming in from an objective opinion. These are people who are very experienced in doing this kind of work. So that's what we've done so far in the next steps.
Good, thank you very much. Love to hear this information, by the way. And do we have any questions?
Just, do we have your contact information?
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
Tracy
but-
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that could be sent to council, that'd be really helpful. Thank you.
I'm very grateful. Thank you.
I'm delighted to be able to do this for the community. Absolutely delighted.
So do you have a time frame in regards to some of the
Yes.
items that you're going to get accomplished?
Well, phase 1, all of the preparation and research is going to be done by mid-July. This should take over a year, but we're going to do it in about 6.5 months. So it is extremely aggressive, but I feel it's really important that we get to the DMO and get that organized by the first part of 2018 in order to give them time to get their legs underneath them, get familiar with the tourism plan, and get some things happening in order for you to see some benefit by the 2018 tourist season. So first phase of research is going to be done by mid-summer. The second phase is going to be done by early to mid-fall, depending on how quickly we can go through some of the internal gathering and the assessment pieces. And we will have the strategic plan done by first part of January so that we can get the DMO up and running by the end of January.
Good, thank you. Councillor Graychuk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very good job, Darlis. I'm very, very impressed with what you're doing so far.
Thank you.
It's a little big thing, but when you've mentioned signs, are you including the Badlands sign that should have been erected some time ago, and I don't know where it stands right now, but it should be up, and is that included in your whole package?
Yeah, when we talk about the signage, those are one of anything that comes up like that, and that's actually something that I've noted because I know it's been brought up in council before. So that might be one of the things that we identify. Here's a recommendation. We need to get that Canadian Badlands sign because it helps to create some branding. And so within the project, I will then pursue how we can get that done for you by the time the DMO gets going by January.
The reason I'm concerned about it, there is $2,500 sitting there that's going to expire if we don't get use of it right away.
Oh, I never let money expire.
Well, thank you.
No further questions? Thank you very much, Darlis, and you and the previous group are making things very exciting in our town. Thank you.
Good things on its way.
Yes, good.
Definitely.
Thank
More
you
good
so
things
much.
on its way. Thank you.
Do you wish a motion for both of those? As,
I would certainly move to accept Darlis and Tracy's report for information purposes, Your Worship.
thank you. We have a motion to accept the reports for information. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the minutes of the May 17th regular council meeting. Councillor Walls.
Your worship, I'd move to adopt the minutes as presented.
Question, Your Worship.
Councillor Sobel?
I hate to throw this at you, but I just saw this now. It's on page 2 of the agenda, page 12. I'm sorry, page 12 of the agenda, page 2 of the meeting minutes. First paragraph, sixth line. The expansion will provincial standards. Do you by any chance know what that is?
I think it means we'll meet.
Meet?
We'll meet, yeah.
And was that in regards to Leeds?
Your worship,
Go.
we can refer back to the video.
I apologize. I
to
should have brought
amend
that to your attention. I just noticed it now. But I'm just trying to think if there was comment in regards to going silver leads on the expansion, and I just can't remember. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm just trying to remember, I'm just trying to see if I remember. Go ahead, sir.
If I may, through the chair, the commentary was about aligning with silver leads without doing the application simply because of the cost.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor Walls?
Your worship, do you wish to table this motion to confirm or?
No, just
Proceed.
with the amendment.
Okay, perfect.
So your
I
motion,
will change that then to read, approve the minutes as amended.
thank you very much. All in favor? Carried. And thank you. Next item on our agenda is 7.1, borrowing 2017. And Mr. Teedy, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this request for a decision is to authorize or have council authorize the mayor and CAO to sign the borrowing agreement and documentation pursuant to borrowing bylaws 1612 and 1621 with funding from the use of bankers' acceptances through CIBC. Council passed both bylaws in the past. The 1612 is for the Edgefield Recreational Fieldhouse, and 1621 has to do with the downtown street improvements, pathways, the purchase of land, and/or construction for municipal purposes, a total of $6 million under that bylaw, so a total of $8 million. The posted Alberta Capital Finance rate for 15-year borrowing is 2.653, and a 20-year borrowing is 2.975%. The interest rates, and that's from Alberta Capital Finance, the interest rates quoted by CIBC for the same length of loan is 2.40 and 2.35. The term from CIBC is for a 10-year borrowing. So the interest spread on the rates is 0.3% on the 15-year borrowing and 0.575 on the 20-year borrowing. The CIBC has a renewal feature at the end of 10 years to either renew or pay out the debt obligation. With Alberta Capital Finance, the borrower is obligated for the full length of the term, being 15 or 20 years. One of the concerns by council in the past is the inability to pay out early. And through the use of these financial instruments, we do have that opportunity at the 10-year point or sooner, depending on interest rates, if it's advantageous to pay them out. So there is a little bit of risk, and the risk is completely with the town and has to do with our own financial well-being in terms of, can we, at the end of 10 years, pay out or renew? So we will have a savings of just over $300,000 using the approach with CIBC and bankers' acceptances. That will cushion an interest rate rise if we do not pay it out at year 10. Council has adopted the long-term financial plan, and through the prudent use of financial resources and staying the course with the long-term financial plan, I feel it's unlikely the town will be unable to deal with the renewal in less than an advantageous way at year 10. Those are my comments, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Councillor Walls?
Thank you, Your Worship, to the Director of Corporate Services. Good evening, Director. I like the ability to be able to pay that out whenever we want. I do like that ability after the 10 years. Do you expect us to be able to pay that remaining balance off after that 10 years?
I believe if we budget correctly, we should be able to do that.
Okay. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Walls. Councillor Graychuk?
Thank you, Your Worship. In all your numbers here, what does it come to in actual dollars that we're going to save from the 2.97 to, or 2.40 to 2.35, and the other one at 0.575 over the years?
So the very, if you're looking at the spreadsheet, the very bottom line on the left side, 263,000. And then a little further over to the right, 41,000, for a total of 304,000.
Thank you. I, for one, would like to go to the least amount we can save on interest, or go to that where we can save a lot of dollars and cents. And also, is there one of the banks that will not let us pay out early?
Normally, we would go to Alberta Capital Finance. They generally have had the best interest rates. I was approached by CIBC with the thought to use these bankers' acceptances as a way of reducing the interest rate. What we're doing, in effect, is we're cutting out the middleman. Alberta Capital Finance uses these same financial instruments to finance their debt, and instead of going to them, we're going to the bank to borrow this money directly.
Thank you.
Councillor Field?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just two questions, or two comment. One question, one comment. I'd also like the ability to have flexibility to pay off sooner. I think we've found in the past that when we get locked into long payments schedules, it's detrimental, especially with the way the interest rates have been. And our financial picture can definitely improve so that we can, like you said, budget and pay down sooner. So I like that. My second part was a question through the chair to admin. And that is, as part of, I just wanted to refresh my memory, as part of that $6 million borrowing bylaw, that includes, the downtown improvements include cleaning Kinsman Lake. Later in the fall, we talked about that. Is that correct?
Through the chair, just to clarify your question, is the downtown, you're talking about the $6 million debt that we're talking about, this is what we're proposing to cover. So your question is about what we would use that for in addition to?
Well, I guess my question is, I was under the impression that part of that would be the cleaning of Kinsman Lake much later in the 2017 year.
So to answer part of the question, I could Bryce is here and he could answer some of that. The intention is to do cleanup around the lake, and then further cleanup in the lake, which will take more, take some more resources, and we have to do it when the,
Yep.
do it in the fall, winter, when the lake's down, because it's still used as a, for drainage purposes, but, so we're doing this in multiple stages.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Field. Councillor Sobel?
Thank you. Just want to clarify, I know it's written here, but of the 6 million that is being used for the downtown pathways, et cetera, we're only, and purchase of land for municipal purposes, we're only borrowing 3 at this time. We're only borrowing money for projects that are ready to go, in other words.
That's correct.
Thank
The
you.
other 3 million will be at the time of need.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Blokeland?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think Councillor Sobel just answered my question.
Sorry.
So between the two bylaws, we would be then borrowing 5 million instead of 8 million, right?
We would borrow the 5 million, 3 million.
And 2.
And 2. In either later this month or very quickly. And the other 3 million when needed.
When needed, right? Okay, could I just ask you, Director, what our debt ratio is, percentage ratio is now?
It was 22.5% as of December 31st, 2016. If we go to the full 8 million borrowing, it will go to approximately 44-45%, depending on the amount of revenue. Part of that calculation has to do with revenue, and I can't tell you what the revenue will be for sure exactly, but it'll be in that range of 44 to 45%, I anticipate, at the end of the year, including any repayments this current year.
And if I go back, my memory's not that great, but 5-6 years ago, we were at 50-some%. Where were we not?
We were over 50%.
Higher?
We were higher than that.
Higher, close to 60?
We were close to 70% at one time.
Yeah, in 2010, we were 67.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. No further questions for me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I really appreciate you bringing this forward, and I really have a lot more trust in you, and would prefer internal control over our borrowing. Is there any difference in the insurance process, or any greater risk to us in terms of insuring debt?
I'm not sure I understand completely what you're
Well,
thinking about.
so when we borrow from the province, they have a broad-based capacity for support in insurable against catastrophic incidents. And I guess I'm just wondering if when we incur that debt, if we'll have the same surety through the banks. Like I don't know. I guess the question I'm asking is one related to risk.
Well, the instrument will be locked in for the 10-year period of time. We will not be required to pay it back earlier unless we were to default on interest payments,
Yeah.
I would think.
In the provincial borrowing process, there is protection against catastrophic events, though, right? And I haven't looked at it for 3 years, so I don't know. I don't remember. It's
I'm not sure how to answer
I'm
that.
sorry.
That's all right.
Mr. Thackeray?
So, if I may, through the chair, there are 2 methods for us to borrow the money required, and as Mel suggested, and yourself, Councillor Peterson, the Alberta Capital Finance is one option, or bank acceptance is the other. The risk analysis that we're discussing, I believe, to answer your question, is There is, the Alberta Capital Finance is a fixed term, very, very low risk financing option. It does not allow us to pay it out sooner.
Right.
Banker's acceptance is another low risk payment option, which allows us to pay out sooner. However, we have to have the ability at year 10 to call, I guess. If they call the debt, we have to be able to pay it.
Right.
Pay out the balance, so whatever that is. And as Mel suggested, there's a 300K roughly savings based on our calculations. So we believe they're both very safe ways of doing it. My sense, if we were to borrow a significantly large sum of money, say we needed to borrow $15 million to build a major addition on a building, I think I would be more inclined to go to Alberta Capital, because it would be a larger sum, a longer term commitment, and a fixed in price for interest rates. I don't know if you want to add to that, Mel.
We'll be making payments over the 10 years,
Yeah.
and a good portion of this debt will be retired as we travel over that 10-year period. What'll be outstanding, on the 6 million, if we borrowed it immediately, we would be down to half at the end of 10 years. And on the $2 million, we would be at $667,000. So we would be owing significantly less than the original borrowed amount. And it would reduce the overall risk by that percentage.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Graychuk?
Thank you, Your Worship. Back to administration in regards to Councillor Fuel's question. When we first talked about borrowing this money, it was my clear understanding as a councillor that we were going to actually dredge Kinsman Lake this year. And I don't know I don't know if I got that answer yet with some of that monies.
So I'm not sure. I think the intention was to clean out the lake in the fall. We would have to drop the level. We would potentially have to divert it. We are working on that project this summer. The initial cleanup is around the edge of the lake to get rid of garbage and things like that. But to actually take things out of the lake physically, we have to drop it and divert it. And that's another piece. I don't think we have a scale and scope yet of that project, but we are working on it. So we can come back to council and give you a more picture on that. Because we would have to do it in the fall, winter. We can't do it in the summer. So that's why we front ended the other projects to move those along and to get the projects around the lake done, like the playground, the pavilion, fixing the light standards and things like that. So that's the first phase. So if you'd like, we can bring back an update on the report, and we can show you the staging, and we'd like to do that if that's agreeable.
I would, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Peterson?
I just forgot to say, Your Worship, that I really appreciate the whole idea of autonomous borrowing, because I really believe, again, that it supports decentralization and it makes us sort of masters of our own destiny in a growth management board environment that I have great fears about. And I think it gives us the muscle to support our own priorities, and for that I'm really grateful. And if we can do it with minimal risk and pay it off early, I appreciate the work you've put into this, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peterson. If I may, just a couple of quick questions, thoughts. In regards to, and I hadn't thought about this until you mentioned that the CIBC was willing to offer a lower interest rates. Have we approached the other banks to see whether or not they might also be willing to even offer more, less of an interest rate for us?
No, we haven't. The bankers' acceptances are in and out of favor. They are a specialized instrument,
Okay.
and not all banks offer
Okay.
that opportunity.
Okay. Then the other thought that's going through my head is 10 years from now, our population is going to be increased somewhat, we believe. And that indeed will help our budgeting, and indeed more people will be paying their taxes, which will help us to reduce the debt even that much quicker.
Intergenerational equity.
Yes.
Let the children pay.
Yeah, no. Hopefully not, but
They could be doing dumb.
yeah. And that's what we're trying to stop. Anyways, no further questions? And we will need a motion then.
I'm prepared, Your Worship.
Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, I would move that council authorize the mayor and CAO to sign the borrowing agreement and the documentation pursuant to borrowing bylaws number 16-12 and number 16-21 with funding from the use of the banker acceptance through CIBC
Thank you very much. Discussion.
with a change in spelling of through. No, I'm good.
Deputy Mayor Blokeland?
Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw 16-21 is set, correct me if I got this wrong here, Mel, it's, that bylaw's set to borrow 6 million, right?
Correct. However, we're borrowing 3 million of that as stage one, and stage two will borrow the other 3 million when needed for land and building purposes.
When that time comes,
When that time comes.
when and if that time comes.
Correct.
So should that amount be in that bylaw?
No?
I just want to make sure I understand this. We're borrowing $2 million for bylaw 16-12,
Correct.
and we're going to borrow $3 million for bylaw 16-21.
Correct.
Thank you.
But we have authorization up to 6 million on that.
That's correct. When needed.
So when needed, that just gets added on to bylaw 16-21?
That's correct. The bylaw was for the full $6 million.
Councillor Peterson?
Oh, I had nothing, Your Worship. Just to clarify, what the motion that we're making today is just that the mayor and the CAO sign this particular part of the process. Am I correct in that? That's what I understand.
We authorize the borrowing agreement, which would
Yes.
allow us to borrow the money, and the documentation. Sir, go ahead.
If I may, just to clarify, the council is authorizing us to use bankers' acceptance, because typically we would go through Alberta Capital Financing. So that's what council is agreeing to. Excuse me. Council is authorizing a signature of the bankers' acceptance.
Because previously we had approved it under Alberta Capital Finance.
If I may, through the chair.
Yes.
Council duly passed its authorization bylaw. We are just proposing an amendment, and council has to agree or disagree with how we propose to finance it. That's the question on it before council. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
No further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Teedy. Appreciate your information. Next item is the CSMI partnership invoice. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council. Today I'm bringing forward a report requesting approval for the payment of the CSMI partnership invoice for the period of January 1st to April 30th of 2017. The Cooperative Stormwater Management Initiative includes 5 regional members, the town of Strathmore, of course, City of Chestermere, City of Calgary, Rocky View County, and Wheatland County. And we are working with the Western Irrigation District on a regional stormwater solution. We are currently working with WaterSmart, MPE Engineering, and the Alberta Environment and Sustainable Resource Development. The CSMI group has been meeting since 2012, and we currently hold regular table meetings. We are currently creating a legal master agreement for the partners to sign into, as well as reviewing the technical document of the stormwater master plan itself to ensure that it meets our needs and the region's needs. A joint fund was set up to pay for the CSMI invoices and is currently managed by the WID. This request is to allow infrastructure and operations to pay for that invoice using those funds. That is all.
Thank you very much, sir. Councillor Graychuk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just so everyone knows, this whole process has been in how many years right now?
I believe initial talks, through the chair, I believe initial talks began in 2011, 2012. Tabletop meetings began in 2012.
So we actually agreed to a lot of this stuff many, many years ago, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
And we
sir.
had put funding in for it.
Through the chair, we agreed to put funding aside in the joint stormwater management fund. The WID oversees that fund. So anytime an invoice comes forward, we have to come to council and request that we can use that fund.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Sobel.
I'm prepared with a motion, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sobel, I will accept your motion.
I would move that council approve the payment of CSMI partnership invoice for $21,753.30, and that these funds come from the joint Strathmore Stormwater Fund currently held by the WID.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Next is the condominium service agreement policy. Mr. Fisher, I think you have the floor. Yes.
Thank you, Your Worship. As council may be aware, the changes to the Municipal Government Act require us to publish all policies on our website. If they're not published, they're not our policies. And in view of that and the fact that we had some feedback in our recent development workshop, we thought that rescinding this policy would be a priority, given that it's dated 2003 and it conflicts with the more recent policies that we've been using since 2014 and 2016.
Thank you. Councillor Sobel.
Thank you. Has this particular policy been used, or are you aware of when it was last used?
It has not been used since I started in 2014, but there is an underlying issue in this, and I think that's one of the reasons it needs to be rescinded. There's an underlying assumption in this policy.
Are you able to just tell me what that is?
Well, the assumption is that all condominiums must be subdivisions.
Right.
And they don't need to be, nor should they be.
Thank you. Councillor Walz.
Your Worship, I'm prepared to make a motion.
I see no further questions, please.
Your Worship, I move the council rescind policy number 6604, the condominium servicing agreement policy.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next is the planning and development update. Mr. Roycroft, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. You started this process back in January during your corporate priority setting session, where you asked that staff set up an opportunity for members of the development community in the town to talk with each other, air issues and concerns, and start working collaboratively towards resolving things. We held that session. Some 32 members of the local development community participated. There was a wide range of conversations. You actually have attached to the back of the report the list of people who were invited, the list of people who attended, and the verbatim comments from each of the table conversations. That was part of our commitment at the time, was to have complete open transparency in terms of everything that we did. We met that commitment. We heard lots of things. We didn't take the time and energy to go back and back check everything to make sure that everything that was stated was factual. a lot of people's impressions, sometimes change over time. We didn't really care about that. What we were looking at was what are the key kernels in here, and what can we do about them? So we spent the better part of 2 months in ongoing discussion and analysis. We've been looking to other communities, best practices across the province and elsewhere. And out of all of that, I've compiled a series of recommendations for you. It's my belief that these recommendations respond directly to the issues that were raised, as well as to modern trends within the planning and development review processes across the province. And if action is taken on these items, I would certainly expect that the next time you host a conversation, it will be a lot different than the first one. And hopefully, the industry will agree that the town has been listening, it has been sensitive, it has been responsive, and you're moving forward. In all of this, one of the central themes is that this is actually a partnership. There's a series of partnerships around here. One is between council and staff as you set policy and they administer it, and the other is between the town and the builders of the community, the developers themselves. And if we continue, as we often have in the past, in an adversarial position, no one will be happy and successful. A partnership and facilitative approaches are the norm these days, and they're not only possible, but with these recommendations, they're achievable in a very short period of time. So with that in mind, I don't want to go through each and every one of these things. I've reviewed them with staff. Staff understand. And I want to say that I wouldn't say that a lot of this stuff is rocket science. It's in common practice in a lot of other places. Strathmore is just in that evolutionary process of moving its processes forward like a lot of other communities are. So I'd be prepared to respond to any questions of specific items that council members might have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roycroft. Councillor Sobel.
Thanks, Rob. I really appreciate all the information, the work you've done on this. So, one of the issues I raised recently, I guess, is focused on there, but it's certainly, as far as I can see anyway, absent. This, but it's based on some of the short-term actions that you provided, specifically numbers 3, 5, 6, and maybe there's a couple more, but which deal with ensuring that a quality product is being provided to our clientele. We are an organization that serves the public, and clearly a lot of this is focused on ensuring that's done well. But what I don't see is any checks and balances in that regard. And for instance, an initiative to have client satisfaction surveys done at the completion of interactions with the town. And I'm just wondering if that had ever been raised, or what your comments are in that regard.
First off, I believe that there are no barriers to communications now, so that's the good news. The mere fact that you hosted the session is evidence of that and commitment to continue. I've been familiar with some of these quality assurance questionnaires after the fact, and in quiet conversations with the members of the development community, they often express frustrations with them. They say, I can't really be totally honest because I fear that if I am honest, I might have some repercussions later on. And I'm not justifying or I'm not agreeing or anything like that. But I think that just having a regular conversation and dialogue, all the members of council are out in the community every day. You're aware of what's going on. You hear it. You've got big ears on. A commitment to hold another one of these things early next year, I think is a sufficient check and balance, because it's going to take us some time to do these things. We can look at the comment card process. It's not hard to implement. We could institute a policy of touching base with a developer a few months after a process has gone through. All of those things are doable. I was more focused on the actual processes themselves.
And if I may, I appreciate that and get it, but you know, your explanation for that is I think in tune with why even on the in regards to interaction with council or anybody, these concerns are never raised, because there is, I think, those concerns. So I'm just, you know, hopeful that we can identify some sort of a check system that would be advantageous to the senior management in regards to, and I'm not only talking about negative stuff here too. There's a lot of positive comments that might be very useful in regards to staff's assessments that senior administration can be used. So I think there's an opportunity here for that, and I was curious about your comments on it. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sobel. Councillor Graychuk.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. In my discussions with a lot of the people after this, that session, it was excellent. I mean, they want to have it happen again, and they were very grateful that we put that together and you put it together, and I think you did a great job. And I love the summary here. I'm just wondering, you know, a lot of people who are brand new to the system, who wanted, right from the person who wants to develop a garage, put up a garage, to the person that's doing a 400 home subdivision, the person that's doing a 400 home subdivision in this area is much different in lots of cases than the one he just completed in Airdrie or wherever. Is there some way and to make an ABC or a Reader's Digest version of so that they don't have to go back 2 and 3 times on some of the questions? And I'm not blaming anybody, don't get me wrong. Please, administration, don't take that as an accusation, but they always say, well, it's so complicated, Steve, that, you know, I can't get at this, and that's not what they said, or that's not what I understood, and it goes back and forth too many times.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that we can clarify some of these things.
Absolutely. We got that message loud and clear. And a number of the recommendations in here, and I believe that the staff have already started to look at some ideas. Write down, record, explain each individual process. I've suggested that you create a template of what a good one looks like. You provide information out, you put good stuff out, the hope is you'll get good stuff back in. And clearly, more information on process, on expectations, on a total list of what town demands might be, you know, provided as early as possible. You never know what you're gonna have to ask for until you get further in the process. Consistency and clarity of approach is absolutely essential. Things like the one window approach, one person's gonna deal with the file, so all the communications will be concise and through that person. You know, there's 50 different things in here, all intended to do exactly what you're talking about, make sure that everybody understands the process, because the staff deal with a complete range, and they have to deal with the range. Everybody is out there. You can't make everybody do exactly the same thing every time, because it's a learning process. One of the big things that I talked about in here as well is the fact of council and staff being on the same page together. And that came clearly from the industry. They didn't think that's the case today, so communications is necessary. And that's gonna be the source of a lot of the solutions. Once you talk about stuff and get things clear and you understand what the staff are actually interpreting the policy to mean, and you clearly say, yes, that's what we want you to do, that's their job, they'll go and do that. We wanna cut out all of the inconsistencies that might have occurred in times past. Want to make the processes clear, consistent, fair, and transparent, so everybody sees exactly the same thing. And I'm excited about some of those changes that I think have got some real good opportunities.
And if I may add to it, and I realize it costs money to have to pay for staff, but one of the other issues that I always had complaints of was that, you know, I can't get it done because that staff member's on holidays or sick or whatever. Is there, you know, there should be a backup person in there that clearly understands when that other person's missing, that they know what's happening, so that, I mean, time is money, and it's big money to these people, no matter if it's building a garage or whatever. So I don't know, can that be somewhere put in there? And I realize that there's rules and regulations in the MGA, and there's a lot of processes that's got to be followed. I mean, it's at the holds up that the second staff member that's handling it, it's not their fault. It's just that they don't, they're not aware of it.
Yeah, it's a very interesting sort of thought. You have limited staff resources, in fact, extremely limited staff resources with the bulk of the workload that's going on now. And I'm not so sure there is a real ability to have a backup alternate on every file. But certainly, the department understands it needs to be flexible. What we've suggested is bringing in some additional resources in both the planning and the engineering side to get all of the houses in order. And I think that the staff will be well advised to take it, that if they need additional resources to deal with delays, they're going to be coming back to you and talking to you about that, because that's not productive for any side of the party.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Graychuk. Councillor Fuel. Oh, pardon me, Councillor Fuel. Actually, Councillor Walls was before you.
That's okay, thanks.
Councillor Wall, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much, Mr. Raycroft, for your report. Just a couple of questions for you. So there were 65 invitees, and there was about 36 attendees, if my math works right. Just wondered, did you accept letters from those that were unable to participate?
We did. We actually sent out a note to people after the fact and reminded them that we would. We received one only. People were given the opportunity. And we sent out the initial invitation, and then we followed it up the week before the session with another direct contact, personal contact with people. So, and it's not as if we shut the door. We'll take anything that anybody gives us at any time.
Thank you, Councillor Walls. Did you have?
I had one more for administration, Your Worship.
Go ahead.
Will this report be made public?
Thank you. Councillor Fuel, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair, one of the things when I read through the various reports from the different tables was I don't want to say inconsistency, but the differing opinions echoed or mentioned by the developers. For example, some talked about the need to continue on and have more narrow lots, yet others said we need to have the ability to have bungalow-sized lots so that Calgary people will be attracted here. Then there was the full-time fire department versus the potential cost to property taxpayers for that. So I guess what I'm wondering is, having read through all this, maybe this isn't a fair question, but did you as a facilitator get a general feeling for how developers are feeling overall as far as their experiences in town?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. And to be clear, when we went through the notes and the tables, there was a lot of comment. Okay, so we set the comment aside and we drilled down to try and find the real meat of the concerns. Around the table, and I visited each and every table multiple times to sort of observe the discussion that was going on. And I think it's fair to say cautious, maybe guarded optimism was a word that I would, or a description I would use. There was a lot of happiness that the session was being held. There was a certain in some cases, cynicism that nothing would be done again. We've had this before. But the general tone and nature of the comments wasn't revolutionary. It wasn't that the whole systems are broken and we've failed. Certainly there are some irritants and some small points and things like that, but generally overall, the fact that developers are still coming forward indicates that the system is not that bad. So what we're talking about is tweaking around the edges and streamlining and fixing things to make it a little bit better. But no, I didn't get the sense that there was a huge degree of anger or anything like that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fuel. Councillor Peterson?
Thank you. I was surprised to read in the recommendations that the most significant issue related to council and staff being on the same page. And I was there, and I was in the room listening to the conversation. And I wouldn't have understood that, but I very much respect your input as the expert in this process. So I was surprised when I read that recommendation to council. And the other thing that really struck me about it was that this CAO has been very, very focused on coaching council, and I would assume, and in fact I know his staff, that one of the things that this town has to do with regards to our investors in terms of our book of business is to provide our community with the 3 Cs. And I've certainly heard him loud and clear with certainty, with clarity, and with consistency. And so when I see that divergence in terms of expectation and understanding between council and staff, I go back to the fundamental reason for it. And I think a lot of it has to do with us having, with the issue we just dealt with before this one, which is issues with our bylaws. So a long history of growth, rapid growth, and some inattention or some not time, whatever it was, to develop that. And so I would say, I would have said that was a major impact. And that's just a comment that I would like to make, because I think that the uncertainty that has been created and the miscommunication is largely due to a lot of people trying to follow rules that are not certain and don't provide clarity.
Absolutely agreed 100%. And through the course of the report, a series of recommendations are aimed at addressing that.
I see that.
And when I talked about council, and when they talk, these were my words, we just recorded, when they talked about council and staff not being on the same page, it's more an interpretation of what an intent of a bylaw was or something like that.
Yes.
And that's why I suggested that you have these regular gatherings where you actually sit down and take one of those things and look at it and say, staff will say, this is what we're doing, this is how we interpret this right now, is it okay? And then that discussion and dialogue will happen, and if council is okay, they keep going. If you're not okay, changes will be made, and bylaws will be amended and policies changed. A lot of the bylaws are seriously out of date, and that's not unexpected given the context that you talked about. Every community faces these same sort of things when they get really busy. They drop long-range stuff and they drop fixing things, and they just focus on getting the applications out the door. And Strathmore is no different than a lot of other places. We're in a little bit of a breathing space now, and it's a good time and opportunity to get all of those houses in order. We've talked about special resources to, as I said, both on the engineering side, where the municipal standards are about 13, 14 years since they've been worked on. The planning side, there are some known areas of weakness in policies and bylaws, inconsistencies that just crop up over time as the normal course of events. So, good news is there's a path here to move it forward.
So one of the things that I didn't see, and I didn't see it with clarity, was that of the 30 some odd people who provide investment and their own money, and they take risks in our community and attended this workshop, I didn't see any specifics around follow-up for a second meeting. And I guess that's something that I'd very much like to see added in this report. I would like to have some kind of an ongoing report to the people that attended this industry workshop, to be able to make sure that they understand that their voices were heard, and that they understand that in the most practical of fashions. And I think about the presentation made by Ms. Simpson and by Darlis Collins just earlier, that this whole idea of developing a marketing organization in the community is something that came out of that workshop, that's been heard, and that we can communicate that we have a mechanism for communicating that in some consistent fashion. And I think that wow, we have a lot of work to do. But I appreciate the report. Thank you.
When you raise that issue now in the cold light of day of looking back at this thing, I guess I operated on an assumption that you would be going back to them again. Because there certainly was an expectation and a hope and a desire and a willingness to participate. So I think there's an expectation out there that you will host one of these things on a regular basis. I would suggest starting it on a yearly basis. The idea of reporting back is really good as well, particularly to council, and I'd be encouraging staff to sort of put this in a format of a work in progress and report back to you regularly. Okay, tick, this one's done. You've seen this one now. Okay, it's finished. Here's the bylaw necessary to make this one happen, so that you're confident that things are going forward, as well as you can report out to the community.
And just to follow up on that, and I appreciate that, do you have, are there mechanisms that are particularly useful to reporting back to the investors, to the developers in the community?
There isn't in this community at this point in time an organization of developers. I expect that some of them probably are members and participate in Chamber of Commerce things. Some communities, usually in reaction to a really bad situation, create an umbrella organization.
Yes.
That hasn't been the case here. It's a small town, and I hope that you're able to affect communications through here, through the media you've got, through publications at the desk, and through all of your ongoing conversations. But it's a good point to bear in mind if people aren't getting the message that there's been changes made, then maybe some additional communications efforts will have to be entertained, because the last thing that you want is to make some changes and improvements and not let anybody know about it. That's a bit counterproductive.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Fuel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to add on or piggyback on what Councillor Peterson was saying, I'm wondering if we as a council and admin could maybe look at, I know the fall budget weekend that we have here in town is quite busy at times, but I'm wondering if we could maybe look at identifying some of these top recommendations that have been boldened here. For example, number 2, dealing with the municipal development plan, you're saying that it should be reviewed at least yearly. Maybe that's something that would be well done in a budget weekend when there's a new council coming in and we're going to focus on at least 1 to 3 of these points each year so that we can get on board and be on the same page. And then staff is with us and council's all together with them. And then that helps new council people who come on board as well.
Great suggestions. I see him, his is taking notes.
Okay, I will accept the motion if there's no further questions. Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, I would just like to ask for the wisdom of council, if we move to adopt these recommendations as reported, would it be appropriate at this point to adopt the recommendations with 2 amendments, and one being to prepare a date for follow-up with the people that were invited to the last workshop and anyone else interested, and to create a communications template, including what Councillor Fuel mentioned. Would it be reasonable to include that in the motion, Your Worship? I'm prepared to do that.
Yeah, I see no objections, so.
Then, Your Worship, I would move that council adopt the recommendation as presented in the attached report, and additionally, that administration would prepare a date for a follow-up meeting of the workshop participants, and to create a communications template for community regarding the actions taken in the attached report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peterson. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Thackeray, you had a question? I missed it?
Voting or you had a question?
Were you voting?
If I may, could I just seek some direction from council?
By all means.
Through the chair, would it be amenable if we, by the end of April next year, set a date? Because we did it this past April, so it would be a year, and we can further engage. And I'd just like to set that as a milestone if you're agreeable to that, we would, because then we have more time to prepare, so.
Go ahead, Councillor Peterson.
And maybe when we're setting up those invitations, the next time we could send out a report card template for them to fill out so that we can get some feedback.
School teacher.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roycroft. Appreciate your report and your time and your advice. Next item on our agenda is the Rural Innovation Forum donation request. Ms. Swatsky, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, Council has received a proposal from Sustainability Resources in regard to hosting a Rural Innovation Forum. The Rural Innovation Forum will be held early in September to late November within Strathmore. The purpose of the forum is to identify areas where we can identify and support through the deployment of professional and financial resources, the development of projects identified in the host region. With the information submitted to Council within the agenda is also a budget from Sustainable Resources, and they're requesting a contribution from the town of Strathmore of $500 to help with this workshop.
Thank you very much. Councillor Graychuk?
Thank you, Your Worship. I thought we had set a fund up for any one of these people that had made these kind of requests.
Yeah. So, Your Worship, there is, within our policies, any donation of 500 or less can be approved by administration. Councillor Peterson asked that this item come forward, so it's come forward to Council for information. If they so choose, they can accept it for information, or they can grant the donation if they so choose as well.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. One of the reasons, Councillor Gray, you're absolutely right, and I was certainly advised by Ms. Swatsky that this didn't need to come forward in this format. One of the reasons that I thought that it would be useful to put it on here would be to maybe have Council begin to think about what this community's contribution would be with regards to our prosperity initiatives, and we have a lot. We have a lot this year to choose from, and so that's one of the reasons why I wanted it brought here, because I think that it's something that we can be thinking about in a more definitive way and contribute. I was really pleased to have the invitation from Sustainability Resources, and I thought that in addition to donating the $500 to the Rural Innovation Forum, that it would be useful for the Sustainability Committee to decide what they'd like to feature, or which portions of the innovations from our community that we'd like to feature in the forum. That's the only reason I brought it forward.
You couldn't have said that in a shorter way.
No. I don't have your sense of clarity, Councillor Graychuk.
Thank you.
So, Your Worship, I would move that Council donate $500 to the Rural Innovation Forum, and that Sustainability Committee of the Town of Strathmore decide on which rural innovations they would like to highlight in the forum.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peterson. Discussion.
Is that short enough for you?
So we have a motion on the floor? No? Go ahead, Councillor Sullivan.
Speaking on behalf of the Sustainability Committee, I have absolutely no problem, but I'd really, really like if you came and presented on to our Sustainability Committee.
You're going to put a timeline on, huh?
Because apparently you said there was a whole line of them, and I can't, I'm having trouble figuring what that big list would be, so we'll work that out.
I would love
though,
to do
but
that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have a motion on the floor. No further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Next item is August council meeting. And Ms. Swatsky, you have the floor again.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, I guess I don't have to remind Council that there is an election in October this year. It may come as a surprise, I'm not sure. Administration is bringing forward a request to Council to cancel the August meetings. The request is being made due to the number of items that need to happen around an election. One of the things that administration is looking for, and that will be of benefit to council members as well, is the development of an orientation for candidates in the election, as well as an in-depth orientation for new council members once they are elected. We're asking for this month in order to prepare for these items.
Thank you very much, Ms. Swatsky. Councillor Sobel?
I'm never in favor of canceling summertime council meetings because inevitably we end up meeting anyway. And at the end of the day, it doesn't make much sense to be canceling a meeting when we end up meeting. But in this particular case, and I first of all, I empathize with the situation administration is facing this. But this would result in almost a 2-month period between council meetings, 50 days. It seems like a lengthy time, and I'm wondering if how difficult it would be to cancel the regular council meetings, but maintain the committee of the whole meeting, at least to keep council updated with what is going on, and to allow administration the opportunity to have items that will, I can just about guarantee, will have to go before council in that period of time.
Mr. Thackeray?
Through the chair, we're certainly amenable to that. No problem. We, as manager stated, we're just trying to spend some time on some pretty big issues. We have orientation. We also have to do budget preparation. So there's a lot of work to prep for budget for the transition of power from the councils. We have the major projects happening this year. And it's also our intent to, wherever possible, that we would put an emphasis on getting any decisions before council before the end of July. So we have the ability to support council with the work coming up in the fall. But that's really all our intention is. We're certainly happy to work with whatever schedule you wish to work with.
Go ahead, Councillor
If I could, and just for the record, I have, as you will find out, I have no problem with special council meetings anyway. I mean, it is what it is. When we got to meet, we have to meet. But I just thought I would throw that out for council and see if there was any other comments in regard to that. I'm not aware of if everyone was aware of the time span between meetings that would take place with the cancellation of August meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Graychuk?
Thank you, Your Worship. In respect to administration's request, I would go along with them, and if we have to have a special council meeting, let's go that route. It doesn't take much to call one, and let's get on with it that way. That's my preference.
Councillor Fuel?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just through the chair, a comment. I was in favor of, doing away with August meetings if that was something that could help administration, but I do like the compromise where we keep the committee of the whole too. That would at least keep us in the loop a bit more, and then there may not be a need to have a special council meeting.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fuel. Any further questions?
I'm prepared to make a motion, sir.
I will accept your motion, Councillor Graychuk.
That council cancel the August 2nd, 2017 regular council meeting, the August 9th, 2017 committee of the whole meeting, and the August 16th, 2017 regular council meeting.
Before I accept that, were you suggesting that, no, it was Councillor Sobel that was suggesting that we keep committee of the whole, and you're suggesting that if necessary, we do a special council meeting?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion? Councillor Fuel.
Just what I said earlier, I think, or in my previous comment, I think the idea that we keep the committee of the whole would meet some of the situations that might possibly arise, and then we don't have to scramble to try to find somebody. I think it is a good compromise to have the one August 9th committee of the whole meeting kept, and then you still have the other ones that are open as far as giving the administration some time to get their projects looked after.
Thank you, Councillor Fuel. No further discussion? So the motion on the floor is that council cancel the August 2nd regular council meeting, the August 9, 2017 committee of the whole meeting, and the August 16, 2017 regular council meeting. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item on our agenda is the Seniors Advisory Committee funding request.
Your worship?
Go ahead, Councillor Peterson.
I would move that council grant the Seniors Advisory Committee $5,000 for operational expenses, if I may speak to the motion.
Please.
When the Seniors Committee was initially started, when the advisory committee was set up and the terms of reference were defined, it was agreed that the town would give the Seniors Advisory Committee $5,000 for operational expenses in each calendar year, if it was requested by them. They did not request the money last year. They are requesting it this year. And just to remind council, they do report on a regular basis about the work that they're doing, and it's very valuable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Graychalk?
To administration, your worship, where does that money come from?
Your worship, I'm not sure. Perhaps we can get back to council on that. We'll have to speak with the matter. Let's try.
You have an answer, I think.
It's under that line.
Oh, thank you.
Councillor Sobel?
Yeah, and thank you for advising me that. It was, I was under the impression that that was a one-time fund only at the beginning of the organization of the group. I wasn't, I did not recall that this was on an annual basis. But I guess my question would be whether all of council's committees are eligible for funding of this nature, because it was my understanding that any expenditures in a committee would have to come before council for specific authorization. And that question is to administration.
Your worship, yes, typically a committee would have to come before council with a report in requesting any kind of additional funding or resources from the town. I believe that this decision to fund the Seniors Advisory Committee was made when they were first formed. I think there was a request from the committee, so it's kind of a special case. In the terms of reference for the Seniors Advisory Committee, it does state that they must submit a yearly work plan, and that is a recommendation in the report in council's agenda. It's important that council knows where the money is being spent, and that they see results from their committees. So perhaps that's another issue that council could include in the motion requesting that work plan.
I agree, yes, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Blockman?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I think our manager there just explained some of that to me, but has there been previous financial statements provided to the town on what they do? I don't have an issue giving them the 5,000. I just want to know where it's going.
Councillor Blockland, I think Councillor Peterson will be able to answer that question.
Thank you.
The reports, the financial reports are actually prepared by the town. And so they're prepared and given to the Seniors Advisory Committee, not always monthly, but at least quarterly, and particularly when there's action. The money from the Seniors Advisory Committee is almost exclusively used for, well, actually, I'll let them come, when they come, they're going to come and give a report, I believe, in the next month, so I'll let them talk to you about that. But yes, they do have, and in their minutes, there's usually a treasurer's report if one has been forthcoming. Alice will serve as a treasurer.
I just find it somewhat strange. 2 years ago, they had 5,000, and last year they didn't take any 5,000. I'm just kind of curious what's going on there.
Again, Your Worship, in their words, and I came on late to actually sitting at the table, but in the words of the Senior Advisory Committee, their explanation to me was that they didn't know that they had to apply for it each year, that they didn't know. And they thought that I think that there was some misunderstanding. A former deputy CAO sat at the table with them, and the understanding that they had gleaned at that time was that they were responsible for coming to this council to give reports on a regular basis, or as when requested by council. And that's what they understood, and that's what they have been doing.
So my question then would be, how did they get through last year with no 5,000?
Because they just simply didn't go to the Aging in Place conferences, and they didn't go to ASHA, and they didn't.
Thank you.
Councillor Fuel?
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess what I'm feeling is some confusion. I know we pass a lot of motions as far as funding things, but I can feel, and I feel myself, confusion as far as this 5,000, whether it's something they have to come forward each year and do the application, or if it's something that we've approved, or if it was just a one-time startup fee. Can we get an actual concrete answer to whether this is an annual thing, or if it was intended as a one-time startup fee?
Go ahead, Ms. Swatsky.
Your Worship, I don't have that information at this time. If council wishes, we can provide a report to council on what actually was decided for funding for the Seniors Advisory Committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that would be great, if this isn't a time crunch as far as having this done tonight,
Well, we do have the motion on the floor.
right?
Councillor Peterson?
It is my belief, when we started the committee, we understood that through the terms of reference, the goals of this committee would be to provide an avenue for seniors to have a voice in the community, and that to do that we would provide them with funding. I don't think at any time, it makes no sense to me that we would have given them $5,000 forever. That doesn't make any sense. And so I just, my understanding was that was something that was meant to be distributed yearly. I sat, as I said, I came to the Seniors Advisory table late, and I wasn't there at their inception, but the Deputy CAO was. And when I did come, and the Deputy CAO was at the table, that recommendation, or that process was made very clear to them in the times that I sat around that table, that the town was supporting the advisory group in their work, and that their work was to be an advisory process for the community, to provide opportunities for seniors' voice to be heard throughout the community, and to provide avenues for seniors to get information about what was going on in our community. And I think there's no doubt about any councillors who've ever been there that they're carrying out that initiative. So I see no reason to hold off on this, and if it isn't clear in the terms of reference, then it definitely should be made clear.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Mr. Thackeray?
Through the chair, I'm wondering if council wants to put a stipulation on this, should council agree with the grant funding, that should council approve the funding this year, that this would be the last year of doing it, subject to a review of the terms of reference by the new council, because the new council's going to come into office. There may be some different scope of work that the new council may wish. Should you wish, you may wish to put some more edges around that policy process. You may also wish to postpone it, postpone the funding, either to another meeting or to the new council. Just some options for you to consider.
Thank you. Councillor Graychuk?
Thank you, Your Worship. If my memory serves me correctly, it was an annual funding request that they would get over the years. And I've been at a few of their meetings, and I tell you what, they're a very enthusiastic group, and I think they're doing a lot for the community. And they're very busy. I tell you, they got a lot on their plate, and they do need this money. So I would think that, but I do like your suggestion that we give it this year, and then next year the new council can take a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Graychuk. Councillor Fuel?
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. Just through the chair, I'm perfectly fine with giving the money. I just wanted to verify that whether or not it was, I just wanted clarification on how we had set this up. But I guess what I just want to verify, is this letter then, is that for us to be taken in as the official application for the funds? Is that what we're doing then? Because if that's the case, then I'm prepared to vote on the motion as far as based on this letter, then that's fine. Thank you.
I have an amendment to the motion.
Yes. Did you want to adjust your motion?
I just make an amendment. I do agree with CEO Thackeray's assessment, and I think that not that the $5,000 grant should be changed, but maybe the process under which that grant is distributed. I think there are better ways to do it than we currently did it, and I'd like to see it continued, and would support that in the future. And I would move then, Your Worship, an amendment that would read, the council grant the Seniors Advisory Committee $5,000 for operational expenses for the 2016-2017 year.
And the only question that I have in regards to that was in regards to them providing a plan in regards to how the money was being used? Is that also?
That's part of their mandate
Okay, good.
already.
Thank you. No further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And committee reports.
I would move that council accept the report of the Seniors Advisory Committee as presented for information.
Okay. No discussion on it? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Sobel?
Your Worship, I would move that council accept the minutes of the Strathmore Canada 150 Planning Committee, the Downtown Design Review Committee, and the Sustainability Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried.
I have a question, Your Worship.
Please.
To administration regarding the passing of minutes. So I do note that these minutes are before council, and that there is a requirement, a legislative requirement on this new process. But I would also note that that in the case of the Seniors Advisory Committee, that they are often bringing forward concerns that they have with the way the minutes are being written, and they have concerns that the information isn't consistent with what they believe has occurred at those meetings. And I think that they will be addressing that when they come before council. But I just want to make council aware that this is an ongoing concern at that table. And I'm sure that it's one that they will bring forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Sobel?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. And next item is notice of motion, the 2-hour limited parking. Okay, Ms. Swatsky?
Sorry, Your Worship. Just moving back to the previous matter in regards to the Seniors Advisory Committee, just wanted to let council know that I will be attending the Seniors Advisory Committee meeting next week to talk with them about their minutes and agendas and hopefully alleviate any concerns that they may have.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Swatsky. 9.11, notice of motion. Councillor Sobel? Does he have to read that out? Yep, okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. Whereas the town of Strathmore recently held a downtown seminar with downtown business owners, and whereas there continues to be a concern from Strathmore business owners that the 2-hour parking restriction negatively affects shoppers from completing their activities in the downtown area, now therefore be it resolved that council extend the parking lot for downtown from 2 to 4 hours. And there's a motion, or there's a motion to, this motion is to be considered at the June 21st, 2017 regular council meeting.
Thank you very much. And administration has that information. Mr. Thackeray, you had a comment?
If I may, can I make a clarification to Councillor Sobel?
By all means.
I understand this would be all on-street parking downtown?
Yes.
Would this include off-street parking that the town controls? Because there is some that the town controls.
Yeah, off-street?
Yes. Or it was just intended for on-street parking?
It was intended for on-street.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Next item is bylaw 1710, procedure bylaw amendment bylaw. Ms. Swatsky.
Your Worship, administration is bringing back council's procedure bylaw with amendments that were discussed at the May Committee of the Whole meeting with council. Amending bylaw is in your package for your review. And there's a number of items. I'll just go through them. In Section 17, administration is requesting that council add the Tourism Development Committee to the list of council committees. A terms of reference for the committee is attached to the bylaw. Section 20 of the amending bylaw has included provisions regarding the appointment of public members to council's committees. The section in the bylaw reads that committee members will be appointed to committees for a one-year term. The terms for appointments start October 31st of each year and end on October 30th of the following year. Committee members may be reappointed and serve concurrent terms up to a maximum of 4 terms served. And committee members may serve over the maximum amount of terms in extenuating circumstances upon council's approval. Section 22 of the amending bylaw states that council will be holding the regular council meetings, or all council meetings, at 7 p.m. So we're changing the time again. We're going back from 6 to 7 p.m. Section 48 includes a provision to record council meetings both in regular council meetings and committee of the whole meetings. So currently we do not record committee of the whole meetings. They will be recorded with this amendment. Administration has also changed Section 78 of the bylaw to change the title of question period to questions between councillors and council statements. Also, we've included a provision for council to go over the 20-minute time limit in this part of the meeting, and that would have to be done by a 2/3 vote. Section 91 includes a provision for council members to read their own administrative inquiries. Compared to now, the clerk reads the inquiries. And Section 96 includes a provision for council members to report on external committees on which they sit. That was left out of the previous bylaw, but it's been put back in. We've also made changes to reflect all of the changes just mentioned in the order of business within the bylaw. And there's also been revisions made to all of the terms of reference for council's committees. And some of those revisions include member responsibilities. So under that section, it states that members must abide by council's code of ethics and conduct policy. It also sets requirements for members to attend the committee meetings on which they're appointed to. Also, for some of the committees, we've included preferences on experience of public members. So the intent is that preference will be given to candidates who have experience in the fields indicated. And it is important to remember that anyone can apply to a council committee, but those preferences are there to help council make decisions when there's multiple community members applying to sit on committees. And we've also included in the terms of reference reporting requirements for all of the committees. Not all of them had requirements. So those are the amendments that are being brought forward for council at this time. It's important that council remember that this is an ever-changing document. It'll continue to change the longer council works with it, and that's our report. So if council so chooses, administration is recommending that council give all 3 readings to the amending bylaw.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sawatsky. Councillor Walz?
Your worship, just a quick comment. I wish to thank administration. I know this has not been an easy task, and I really do appreciate all the work that administration has put into making this an even better bylaw. So thank you, your worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Walz. Councillor Peterson?
I just have a clarification, your worship, on page 2 of the document in 78B. We speak in that section about questions between councillors and council statements, and Part B then identifies it as members, and I'm wondering if that is an inconsistency. Do we have somewhere in the document that identifies who a member is?
Yes, your worship. In the bylaw, it does indicate that members mean members of council.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Fuel?
Thank you, your worship. Just a question about section 22 with the start time becoming 7 p.m. Does that mean we also have to have the end time changed to 10 p.m. with the potential of it adding on with a 2/3 vote? Because we had set an end time as far as our 7 p.m. meetings.
Correct, yes, your worship. So yes, there was a time limit for council to end at 9. If council so chooses, there could be a further amendment to this bylaw to
Make it 8?
to end meetings at 7:30, no. At 10 PM if council, whatever time council so chooses.
Are you making a suggestion at this point, Councillor Fuel?
Well, it's a sad suggestion. It just seems like, we had 3 hours allocated, so that would mean that the maximum end time we would have would be 10 PM. And then if we wanted to go longer, we would have a vote.
And I don't have the full bylaw in front of me, or maybe I do. And does that bylaw read that the council meetings will be 3 hours in length, or does it says a start time and an end time? So we will have to, if we are, at this point, we might make an amendment right here and now to say that the end time will be 10 PM. Unless that's just not on our documents, and it should be. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, your worship. How important is it to have an end time specified? What happens if a meeting is done by 9? Do we sit here for an hour till 10, or? I'm just asking a question.
I think it was just a maximum time to have it end at.
Mr. Thackeray?
Yes, I believe it, to answer Councillor Blockland, the intention was to have a specified time in the bylaw with some parameters around it. That's been the practice. And we would continue to, we would recommend that council continues with that practice, subject to your discretion of how long and what the times would be.
Thank you, Mr. Thackeray. Councillor Graychuk?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's to prevent a filibuster, isn't it? They could go all night long, but somebody wants to keep talking. But in one sense of the word, but why not to 9:30, split the two, and then we'll have an end time of 9:30 and 20 minutes after that? Is that a problem with anybody? I mean, 10 o'clock, I'm starting to yawn.
It's boring time.
So, Ms. Swatsky, as our parliamentary resource, and the bylaw right now says 10 o'clock, did you want us to amend the motion, or how did you want this handled?
Your worship, council can, at second reading, make an amendment to, an additional amendment to the bylaw to change section 83 of the procedure bylaw as well, to state that a regular council meeting shall adjourn at 10 PM or 9:30, whichever council so chooses. And then if in session at that time, council may by 2/3 vote taken before, whichever time, extend the meeting by 1 hour only. That would be the amendment recommended.
Thank you. Councillor Walls?
Worship, I'm prepared to make a motion.
And I am prepared to accept the motion.
Worship, I'd move the council give first reading to bylaw 17-10, council procedure amendment bylaw.
Thank you very much. We have a motion for first reading of the bylaw 17-10, procedure bylaw, amendment bylaw. All in favor? Carried.
Your worship.
Councillor Walls?
Your worship, I'm prepared to make another motion.
Councillor Walls, I'd like to hear your motion, please.
Your worship, I'd move the council give second reading to bylaw 17-10, council procedure bylaw, amendment bylaw, with the following changes as read by our manager of legislative services.
And my
9:30 or 10?
my clarification, did she say 9:30 or did she say 10?
She said make up your mind.
That's what I'm trying to do.
So 9:30, is that section 85?
3.
83. So section 83 reading 9:30 PM?
Yes, PM. So we have a motion for the bylaw with the amendment under section 83 for council meetings to be ended at 9:30 with the other qualifications in there should we wish to go longer. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Councillor Peterson?
I would move the council give third reading to bylaw number, what?
Unanimous. We have to do unanimous first, do we not?
Yes, unanimous consent, yep. to bylaw number 17-10.
Good.
Council procedure bylaw, amendment bylaw.
We have a motion for unanimous consent for the reading of bylaw 17-10. All in favor? Carried.
And your worship, I would move that council give third reading to bylaw number 17-10, council procedure bylaw amendment bylaw.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? None? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, Ms. Swatsky. And next item is 11.1, air quality testing. And do you have that one, Councillor Sobel?
Your worship.
Oh, hold on one second. Councillor Walls is declaring a possible bias in regards to this, and so would you please show Councillor Walls as vacant from the meeting? Councillor Sobel.
Thank you, your worship. This matter deals primarily with the situation that our neighbors in the county are dealing with. I'm sure we've all read the newspaper articles and perhaps spoken to some of the residents near the Nightingale area who have complained of an extremely unpleasant odor in the area for quite some time. Allegations suggest this odor originates from the Biocan compost facility located 6 miles northeast of Strathmore. Last week, I received information which quite honestly caused me great concern. I heard about county residents in the area being physically sick because of the smell, and others with serious throat irritations whenever in the general area of that plant. I've since learned that the facility handles biosolids, food wastes, animal manures, grass clippings, wood chips, drywall, animal bedding, and sulfur. And also that some of our own residents have occasionally detected an odor described as disgusting and/or toxic, and definitely not odors originating from stockyards. I'm particularly concerned about the sulfur, and I've seen photographs of actual mountains of this chemical stockpiled in 2 separate areas, both east and northeast of our community. Alberta Environment and Alberta Health Services are now involved in this issue to different degrees. In a meeting held May 2nd in County Council chambers, the Alberta Environmental representative admitted having received numerous complaints about the smell in this area in the past. I was sufficiently concerned about the new information I was receiving that I felt a special council meeting should be held last week to expedite acquiring air quality equipment. Unfortunately, I was unable to gather enough council support to hold that meeting, which brings us to today. As a member of the RCMP for 29 years, I was primarily a criminal investigator. No matter whether I was dealing with a mischief charge or a murder investigation, the procedure was always the same. Get the facts, do it in an unbiased and a fair manner, but do what had to be done to obtain the facts. This situation is no different. Quite simply, we have very few facts. We know there's an air quality problem in the Nightingale area, and we know that this problem is either an environmental one, a health one, or both. One way for us to obtain information is by obtaining the services of an air quality testing device. I believe that it is imperative that this device be obtained and put in place immediately, as we simply have no information about what may be in the air that our residents are breathing. This is strictly an investigative and precautionary action, one designed to assist council in determining what, if any, future steps are required. At yesterday's county council meeting, Biocan representatives advised County Council that steps are being taken to eliminate the products that are causing the odor. That is indeed good to hear. Nevertheless, I think we owe it to our citizens to begin our own investigative action and to maintain it until such time that we are satisfied that our community is no longer at risk. Lastly, I would only add that the public health official who was present at the May 2nd County Council meeting agreed that air monitoring could very well be of assistance in determining whether a health issue existed. I do have a motion, Your Worship, and at your convenience, I would read that after any discussion by council.
Good, thank you very much. Councillor Graychuk?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, that's a very good report, Councillor Sobel, and I do agree with you. Are we in communication with the administration? Are we in communication with the county administration as to the severity of this and what's going to be happening, or are we working in collaboration with the county?
Mr. Thackeray?
Through the chair, I'm meeting with the county CAO later this week. It's one of the topics of discussion. We have no formal arrangements between us at this time, and it's all subject to what council's wishes are as well. So, but we're certainly keen to do whatever we can.
And it's my understanding that they are setting up an air quality monitoring system also. How close would that, anybody know how close that will be to the town or anything like that? And maybe a dual system would help us both, but is it cheaper to work together on that? I'm wondering if we could. I just hope let's work in collaboration with them. And what about, from a legal point of view, do we need to contact a lawyer to say that, what is the liability that we have here in this case if we don't act prudently and swiftly?
I'm not sure I understand your question. Are you concerned about, I'm not sure we have a liability because it's not something that originates, it's not within our sphere of influence or council's authority of jurisdiction.
Well, we do have a liability if that catches fire in the north of us here, and gas is coming into the community, and we've been discussing it already, you know, seeps into basements or whatever. And I'm not being melodramatic. I'm just saying that it can happen. And I don't want to panic the public either. But and I'm not trying to. But we are aware of it. So maybe there is a liability here.
I'm not certain of the risk of legal liability to the town, and I certainly will look into it. I believe there certainly is a provincial jurisdiction. There's provincial authority that we would work with, and certainly with our Den who's present in the audience here. And certainly anything we can do, we will certainly do.
Pretty bad. We already 51 of our guys. No, I'm serious. No, if we could check it, I would like it to be checked legally. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Graychuk. Councillor Peterson?
Following Councillor Sobel's comments and Councillor Graychuk, I was very much in favor of gathering pertinent information on a more emergent basis. As Councillor Sobel mentioned, I think it's really key to know what is, and we certainly didn't know what we were facing. But it certainly did lead me to go to the research and to find out that other communities are facing exactly the same thing that we are, and they've taken some really proactive action, and that so many communities in Canada have had pollution build up in isolated pockets, almost always from industrial causes. And one of the things that the organization TERA, which is the National Air Quality Monitoring Division, says that no one actually knows, unless they monitor it, how pollution moves through their particular area or their particular region. But it's a doable process because there is a certain amount of predictability in waves in terms of both air and water and the pollution around that. And one of the things that some communities in this country and in the United States have done is that they've set up a process of citizen scientists with very, very accurate air quality monitoring devices, and they put them in the hands of sometimes of high school students, of interested citizens in the community, and they gather that information on a regular basis and put it into a data model. Hamilton, Ontario has been really one of the places in Canada that's been really successful in doing that. And I was just, and I think the cost of the device is about $470. But it varies. But that's just the one that I was looking at. But I thought the idea of citizen scientists is something that would be really interesting for our community to look into, and I really believe that we need to look into our future in terms of monitoring air. And I think this might be one way for our sustainability committee to look at. I think it would be really interesting. And I just urge very strongly that that we do the testing ourselves. I think that because of that whole idea that pollution moves through areas differently, that our town needs a unique solution specific to to our own community, and certainly working in cooperation with the county is a given, but we should also make sure that our people are our priority. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Fuel?
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I'm like the other councillors. I want to make sure that our residents are safe and protected too. So as far as monitoring it, I think it would be a good idea to try to find out if the air quality at our northeastern areas is good. My question through the chair to admin is, maybe it's regarding both the county and the town. If the air quality is proven to be at an unsafe level, and it's found that way by renting air quality monitoring equipment, can the cost of those rentals be recovered from the offending company? Or is that just simply a way for us to check and maintain the safety of our people? Are they, I guess what
Not
I'm,
at this
similar to
time.
Steve, it's almost like, are they liable for the cost of renting the equipment if we determine that it's unsafe air?
I don't believe so at this time.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Blokeland?
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree that this is an issue, and obviously we have to look after our citizens. I believe more it's a county issue. Setting up air monitors on the northeast side of town is one thing, but you're quite a ways away from the problem area. These readings will vary and not be adequate. These readings cannot be proven to be coming, in fact, from that facility. So in answer to Councillor Fuel's statement there, how are you going to prove it's coming from them guys? The information I got last week on this, Wheatland County Council, and I stand to be corrected on this, but they're not even putting up an air monitoring station till July 1st, which is a month down the road. I did talk with Alberta Health Inspections. I deal with these people on a yearly basis, and it clearly is an environment issue. I asked him if he was concerned about a health issue, and he has had no calls or emails or anything regarding any citizens in town being concerned about this. So I'm not against this whole thing, but I just find it strange we're jumping on here pretty fast, and yet the Wheatland County people, council, are actually waiting for another month. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Graychuk?
Thank you, Your Worship. One of the things that's been happening out there, and as the crow flies, it's only about 4.5 miles towards the town of Strathmore, but it did catch a fire here a couple of days ago, and they have about 80 tons of sulfur that's not supposed to be there, that's not allowed to be there. So that's why I'm a bit concerned about it. We should be looking into it right now, because if that caught on fire, that would. And I worked in sulfur when I was a younger lad, and it's deadly stuff. We should be concerned about it. If that all caught on fire, and there's no way putting that fire out. There is no way. I mean, you can tell them you can do anything you want, but it'll burn for a long time. And I think we should be looking into it now. Not to, again, I want to emphasize, let's not panic the public, but we should be looking into what we can do to help our citizens.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Should we then not maybe direct our communications and our concerns through Wheatland County Council?
And are you directing that question to administration or to, yes, to administration?
Yes.
Thank
If
you.
in fact there's 80 tons of sulfur sitting out there that's not supposed to be sitting there.
We can ask them, certainly, and council, I would encourage, if council wishes to make a statement, that they communicate with the Wheatland County
I would certainly
Council.
support that.
We're
concerned about it, that's why we're discussing it here,
Yes.
so
But to share it with the county council.
to share it with them guys, tell them we're
Yes.
concerned about it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course, we'd have to want to make sure that we're verifying the information, that we understand the information first. Councillor Fuel?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering if we can just direct our CAO to contact the county CAO as early as possible, maybe tomorrow. Pardon me? Okay, but I'm just wondering if it's an emergent issue, we could even have this initiated tomorrow, just to touch base with them and see what's the latest news, what's going on, what's the air quality, what do they know? That might be a way to start.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fuel. Councillor Sobel?
I do have that motion, Your Worship, but just further to Councillor Fuel, I would, probably more appropriate if Your Worship was to perhaps contact the Reeve and have a discussion in this regard. I think it is important for us to make contact, but we're on a different pathway here. We're dealing with an issue that is not before us, although I support it and want to encourage it. But this has to do with you know, and I mean, I can only express concern for our residents at this point. That's my focus, and I believe that the county is doing everything they can to deal with this issue, but I think it's time for us to do everything we can to deal with this issue as well. So I would make the motion that.
Can I get you,
Yep.
before you
Sure.
make the motion, I just want to ask a few questions if I might.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
And the questions, well, first of all, I think we're all in agreement that our priority is the citizens in regards to finding out what's going on and taking steps to make sure that they're protected, whether it be for odors or a fire danger or whatever the situation might be. And I guess in regards to the air quality equipment, and I know you were doing some research in regards to that, is there some air quality equipment that is now available for us to rent?
Yes.
Okay. And how fast can we have that?
Friday.
Okay. Imminent, in other words, then. Thank you very much. And what I'd be interested in is in regards to the cost of the equipment to rent for whatever period of time it is. And do we also have to pay the fees in regards to monitoring this equipment?
It's about 5 to 6K
Per month?
per month.
Yes.
Yeah.
And monitoring? There's a cost in regards to monitoring?
That's all in.
So it's about 5,000 to 6,000 per month, everything in.
Yep.
And so when would we make a decision in regards to whether or not we want to go for the second month? Or are we going to be looking at that in regards to your motion?
I do include that, Your Worship.
Okay.
I don't know if this is a motion that will be satisfactory to council, but I have included that area.
Thank you very much. And the other question that I have is, have we received any information from any of our physicians that this odor is causing some sort of medical distress? Have we received anything? And what I'm looking for is whether or not there's even a higher priority than we might know about.
I'm certainly
aware?
not aware of any physician concerns, but that doesn't mean there aren't any, so I'm not.
Okay, thank you very much. An Emergency Services Director, you had a comment? No?
I would like him to comment.
Oh, okay.
And I would like to comment. Thank you, Council, Your Worship. There is always the opportunity to do monitoring. Proper monitoring for a municipality other than a rural area would require some type of plume dispersion modeling, which would require also monitoring on the other parts of the community so that there's comparatives that can be used to also include the emissions that occur in your municipality. One of the things that hasn't been discussed tonight that I would like council to consider and recommend is an actual formal discussion with people from the plant.
Yeah.
Find out whether it's 8,000 or 80,000 or whatever it is, and what the products are, what their risks are. I have the material safety data sheets and the response, the emissions from fires and flares, and it's not just sulfur products that are there. It's a sulfur type product that is used for farming material. For farming and spread on the ground, and it releases over a couple of years. I know that because I went online and I looked at the material for the companies on the company's website. So it's not the sulfur blocks that we know from the Nexon plant in Balzac or the Crossfield plant, which are all gone now. It's not that type of risk or fire danger and the ability for it to be not put out, but there may be some other risks that I think that it would be valuable for council to know in speaking with a representative of the company. And I'm not aware of one being here to this point.
Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Worship. So so it's been a long time since I taught chemistry 30, but sulfur on its own certainly isn't dangerous necessarily, but when there are unknowns, then certainly, and if that was certainly on my list, if we could have a discussion with the company or authorize our Director of Emergency Services to have a conversation, I think that would be extremely useful, and follow up to that, then, if we have things that are not, are of concern, that we then could make sure we had a plan in place. Because just doing the air quality testing won't be sufficient.
Through
ahead,
your
sir.
worship to Councillor Peterson, that's absolutely correct. And I would also suggest that we have some of our own hazards in our municipality that would require the same attention and the same type of planning.
Director, do you have any experience with citizen scientist programs?
I've heard of them before, but I have no direct experience.
Thank you.
Councillor Sobel?
Your worship, there was a gentleman in the front row that raised his hand when the director was talking about someone from the company, and I don't want to put you on the spot, sir, but I got the assumption that you're with Biocan. I'll turn that over to your worship and perhaps invite this gentleman to speak if
Okay.
he wishes.
And
I would
I'll-
agree to that.
Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. Councillor Graycheck, before we go anything.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I want to reiterate what Councillor Peterson said. So we do find quality tests bad or whatever. Who's going to, are we going to have follow-up with, who's going to make the recommendation that we do what?
That would be myself to you, Councillor.
Up to
Your
who?
worship, to Councillor Graycheck. I would make whatever recommendation that I could as the Director of Emergency Management and bring it forward to council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Thackeray, did you have a comment first? No?
Sorry.
Okay, if you wanted to come forward, you hear a few of our comments, and please introduce yourself, and we're struggling here in regards to trying to understand the full impact of our community.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to make sure everything's on, so good evening. So my name's Mark Grunert. I'm with Biocan, so I'm a representative from the composting facility in Wheatland County. I wanted to just reiterate on a few things that were spoken about. So, correct, we are in ongoing discussions with Wheatland County. We've met with them earlier this week, as well as attended a council session yesterday, and spoke towards council as to some of the future planning with that compost facility that we have at Wheatland County. So we're more than happy to speak with representatives of the town of Strathmore and discuss further the facility there. We can bring forward some of our safety representatives with us and talk to the materials that are on site. But I mentioned compliance and so on, and the regulator is Alberta Environment. We are compliant with Alberta Environment, and of course, like many regulatory bodies, they visit us on a regular basis and have an understanding of the processes that are going on at that facility.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Worship. When I was looking into opportunities for communities to do air quality tests for not just for this, but for many other reasons as well, one of the things that came to my attention was that while Alberta Environment is responsible for the site, it will only look at tangible environmental concerns, and it doesn't cross over to human health. And so it was a recommendation made to me that this is not just an environmental issue, and I'm not being really articulate here, but they said, if it's an Alberta Agriculture, then the Department of Agriculture comes in and they look after their book of business. Alberta Environment has a very defined book of business, and it's not always connected to Alberta Health. And where people are vocalizing health concerns, those should be dealt with by Alberta Health, and that is something that it is a responsibility of community governments to pursue. And so that's sort of where my research was, and in some of our council was gone, so in the conversation of the council that was here, we talked about that, about being ultra-conscious and conscientious about health versus environment, and how we would move forward with that. And certainly, we have an excellent director of emergency services here in our community, so that is something that we would be looking at in addition. And I appreciate that Alberta Environment's been on site. Thank you.
And if I just make comment to that, I know that in past, and I've been at the facility at those times at Alberta Health, I believe a representative from the Strathmore area has joined Alberta Environment for a brief tour of our facility. So Alberta Environment has, it appears, spoken with Alberta Health, and they've both been by for a tour.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. I don't know who was first here. Councillor Graychuk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for coming here. The first question I would have is that would you be amenable to supplying our administration with all the permits requirements, maximum requirements that you have on the site to our administration in all areas? Like what is your allowable amounts of sulfur? What is your allowable amounts of various composting? And would you be amenable to supplying our administration with that?
Certainly, we've supplied this to the county administration, so we're happy to meet with your administration and review these documents with them.
And Your Worship, is there anybody in administration that is more familiar with, Tracy, are you familiar with some of this, or anybody else? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Graychuk. Councillor Fuel?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question through the chair to the representative from Biocan.
Correct.
I did not watch the county council meeting last night or see what was going on, but can you refresh us or enlighten us as to your company's response to the air quality concerns from the county residents?
Certainly. So that facility, we took it over approximately January of 2016. Now, with regards to regulations for Alberta Environment, a composting facility, this type of one is allowed 20,000 tons annually of inbound nutrients, compost. But there's no restriction on the volume of nutrients that remain on site. So a site could take in 20,000 tons annually for many years and never disperse of that product. So as we spoke about yesterday, we have some historic product that has an odor to it. And since we took that facility over, we've been working through and we've been blending that product off into our sulfur amended compost. And it's a method that we're able to process this product and essentially recycle that product in a sustainable manner. So there was a significant volume there. There is still some historic product, legacy product that's on site. We estimate that to be approximately 10,000 tons of product. And we are working on methods with Wheatland County as to how to continue to manage that product in an appropriate manner.
I guess my question is, I understand you've just explained the process of how you deal with the product that's been stored on site. But my question is, what was the company's response to the actual complaints about the air quality? Did you monitor the air quality? Did you find that chemicals or that substances were high in the air? Was there any kind of concern or any kind of reaction from your company other than retelling me that you store a certain amount there? What was the company's reaction to the concerns about the air quality?
So currently,
what were the levels?
Currently, we don't have any documented issues with the air quality on site. So we've recently added some testing equipment to the outside of our facility, which is essentially standard at various type facilities that may have our products. So industry best practice might be a good word to use. But that was just recently added to that facility.
Your Worship, I have one more comment.
Go ahead, Councillor Graychuk.
I understand there's some people in the crowd here, and everybody else got to speak. I was hoping that they would get to speak. They're neighbors of the site. If they just give them a couple of minutes to speak to it, that would give us more information that we could better make a decision on.
Well, we're only going to be making a decision in regards to air quality, and what we're doing is we're trying to.
Just think it's so helpful we get as much information as we can.
I'll take that under advisement at this point. I'm going to get you to hold your question for a quick second. Deputy Mayor Blokland, you had a question?
Thank you, Your Worship. So, I didn't catch your name, sir, but.
It's Mark.
Mark, on behalf of your company, Biocan, in your opinion, could there or is there a concerned health issue for the citizens, especially in Strathmore?
We don't have a concern of any sort.
We have no concern.
No, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Peterson.
So, in a 10,000 ton of waste that you're trying to work into your current book of business, is there danger to your groundwater? And I know this is a question of pure snoopiness, because I am aware that at your location, it's running north of us, thanks to Councillor Graychuck making councillors go up in helicopters to look at that. So I know that, but it is just a question I have, and it would also be one that relates somewhat to aquifer as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at this time, we are working with Alberta Environment. We have a plan before them for groundwater monitoring, and we're waiting for their recommendation or approval to pursue with that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fuel?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to add on to something that Councillor Graychick said, and I know you're trying to keep the meeting efficient and you want to be as fair as possible. I'm just wondering, though, before we potentially vote on spending money for renting an air quality monitor, maybe hearing from some of the neighbors as far as their own personal experience with the air quality close to this site would help us in making a decision on whether or not we should rent air quality control system.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fuel. And no further questions in regards, did you have something further, Councillor Graychuck?
No, I just
Okay.
hope you do let him speak.
Okay, no further questions in regards to Mark. We appreciate your time very much.
No, appreciate
Thank
you having me, and
Yeah.
I'll contact the office tomorrow so we can
Set up a time for.
exactly for further discussion.
Thank you very much. And so it's been brought forward that possibly we should be listening to some of the members of the county. Are you, you can either shrug or nod your head, wanting to listen to some comments from the county members. Go ahead, Councillor Sobel.
I'll actually speak. If it's going to provide additional information to council on this decision, then I'm in favor of it.
Okay. Deputy Mayor? Yep. Councillor Peterson?
Absolutely.
We have some members from the county that would wish to speak. Please come forward, identify yourself.
Thank you very much for offering me the opportunity as I was sitting here. My name is Tracy Reese, and I am a resident with my husband Kelly at Wheatland County, and we live approximately a mile straight east and slightly south of the Biocan facility. I did speak at the county council meeting yesterday, and I can assure you that there are hundreds of concerned citizens in that area due to air quality, in particular, due to the excessive garbage, the flies, the seagulls that we are in fear of are transmitting and carrying disease off of that facility. I'm extremely concerned about the amount of sulfur that is there, and I do know that there was a large amount of their finished product sulfur content, which is 75% sulfur is their finished product, has been moved and stored east of Strathmore, and I do have some photos if that is of interest on, you can see the color of the finished product. Would you be of interest in looking at that? And I was prepared to, in preparing for my speech and discussion at the county meeting yesterday, I had been thinking about the topic of what if. What if there was a fire? And with that high sulfur content that is there. And there was a fire on Monday. And I can see the piles and the facility out my living room window. And there was a blue, low-hanging fog or mist or whatever you want to call it, floating across our farmlands, across a very large ranch where there were cattle. It was going across their backs and heading towards Nightingale. So we are very, very concerned about the effect and the danger and the harm that we are in. And I believe we got the attention of Wheatland County. And on behalf of my neighbors, and I know that there's hundreds of concerned people, I think it is a very good thing that you investigate the air quality. It is extremely concerning to us, and it's a very serious matter, and we frankly don't feel safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. You guys, I'm assuming you're also live in the county?
I'd just like to make a few more comments to clarify some of the things you're prepared to do.
Dennis.
Okay, come forward, identify yourself, please.
My name's Dennis Kim and I'm a resident of the county of Wheatland, and I'm also a member of a group that's trying to get this stuff worked out. Your air quality's fine, but you don't get any quality until you open those piles up there. Those piles that have been there that they assumed, and they call it feedstock or stuff that was left over, whatever you want to call it. It's full of garbage, it's full of disease, it's full of everything that's bad, and it's being spread. And the people nearby have suffered long enough. And you people will suffer too. If the fire comes and the smoke's the right way, your town is in danger. Don't let anybody fool you. Your fire department does not even know where the site is. They don't know how dangerous it is when they get there. I had to tell them to wear Scott packs because of the potential danger of sulfur burning. We're not doing enough. We need you to do more. We need you guys to investigate to protect your town. If that fire was in the right direction, the wind's this way, you can't get your people out fast enough. You've never had to do it. I've lived in this community my whole life, and this is the worst thing I've ever seen in our county and to affect us. And they stand there, and everything on their website is all rosy. Everything they tell us at every meeting is all rosy. And I would present the same thing if I was selling this product. But let's face it, let's realize the dangers. Get in your vehicles. It's only 4 miles out of town. Come and have a see. Come and have a smell.
Thank you.
I don't have all the answers, but I do realize I wish you'd act in a prudent manner. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sobel, I accept your motion now, please.
Your worship, I would move that administration take the necessary action to obtain suitable air quality testing equipment at a cost not to exceed $6,000 per month, and have it suitably located to monitor any possible dangerous odors coming from the Nightingale area in Wheatland County. This procedure is to continue until our Director of Emergency Management is satisfied that no further threat exists in regards to air quality coming from this area. Does this have to specify to CAO, I should add that, where these funds would be drawn from? Drawn from?
Financial stabilization.
Who would have thought? If we could add that, please, Madam Clerk. Thank you, that is my motion, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Did you wish to speak to it?
You know, I apologize, I don't know if anybody heard that, my mic was off, but I think the important thing is, you know, I can't say it any better than Dennis said it. I think it's incumbent upon us to do something. We cannot go to health, being that this facility is not in our area. We can't go to environmental or health with any concerns here unless we have some facts, unless we have some information to supply to them. And we have nothing right now. It's important that we we take some action. And I'm not suggesting for a second that this is the end to beat all, that this is just one step. I'm more encouraged with BioCan's offer to meet with our administration and with our, and I know the abilities of our Director of Emergency Management is going to ensure that further steps are taken, and we have the right man on the job. So we'll be hearing more about this in the future, but this is a first step, but I think it's an important one.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sobel. Who was first?
Thank you.
Councillor Graychuk, go.
I'm sorry, was you first?
No, I was pointing at you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Pat. I like your motion, but I was wondering if we shouldn't mention some more clarification that BioCan or subsidiary companies involved in this, because I don't know.
I wouldn't add that to that motion, Councillor. Our job is to first identify if we're having an issue, and then an investigation can start as to where it's originating from.
Okay. Councillor Fuel?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think we've proven that the town and county work together quite well. We've proven that with some very recent projects. So my comment is, why wouldn't we work together as residents and friends to ensure that they're safe and that our residents are safe too? To me, spending the money to make sure the air quality is okay, is safe for our residents, also ensures that they're safe. And the other thing it does, it sends a little message to the company that we are concerned. Our residents are concerned in this town, and obviously our county residents are concerned, and these people are friends. They're people we've known for many, many years, and we live and work together in various things. So I'm very much in favor of making sure that our air quality is good and sound, and so I support this. I'm going to be supporting this motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fuel. Councillor Peterson.
So I will support the motion, absolutely, and the comments of my fellow councillors, and I think Councillor Graychuk made a really good point, but it's probably going to be the next motion. And I really believe that, and I think that it took a lot of courage for people to come here tonight, and I'm appreciative of the additional information, but companies don't represent community, and I think that if whether we look at Volkswagen or Narsto or ExxonMobil or tobacco companies don't represent communities. We represent communities, and this is our responsibility. And so, for that reason, I am very, very supportive of the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peterson. Deputy Mayor Blokeland?
Thank you, Your Worship. After all the information that's coming forward, both from in town and from the county, I'll certainly support the motion. I would like to see our MLA get involved in this too, if we can get a letter written to him. He already is. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Blokeland. And I too, of course, support the motion. I think it's the proper thing for us to do, to make sure that we are doing what we can to take steps to protect our citizens, and agreeing with our council that working with our county makes our community that much stronger. So I will also support Councillor Sobel's motion. No further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Next item on our
Worship,
agenda.
just before we,
Yes, sorry.
just before we leave that motion, are you prepared to meet with the Reeve?
I will
at your earliest convenience.
Yes, I
to
can.
discuss
I
this
have
matter?
no trouble talking with Reeve Kester at any time.
Appreciate
And
that.
I guess when you get a chance, I would love to hear some of the questions that you would like me to address to him, or some of your concerns from all members of council, and that will help focus our discussion in regards to what we want to accomplish and where they're going with this issue. So, thank you very much. And what we need to do now is to bring Councillor Walls back. Ms. Swatsky, if you'd show that Councillor Walls has returned.
Thank you, Your Worship. I enjoyed the break.
So did we.
I'm just waiting for administration. They've got an item they're working on. This is your motion for this 3%. Yeah, that's next. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is 11.2, and it has to do with remuneration. And if Councillor Peterson, you have the floor.
Yes, Your Worship. So this council recently did their due diligence along with our CAO in completing the evaluative process. And as people who attend this chamber regularly would understand, we are extremely happy with our CAO. And having said that, on behalf of council, I move that we implement an increase in salary of 3% for CAO James Thackeray, effective to April 18th, 2017.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peterson.
With gratefulness for his excellent work.
Gratefulness. Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? Thanks. All in favor?
Oops, sorry.
We try to be impartial, Mr. Thackeray, when we do this.
But how much is 3%? 3% of what?
Of his total salary.
Of his total salary. John, you do not interrupt council. Okay, thank you. But I will answer, his salary is public knowledge, and it's available on our financial statements. Next item on our agenda is responses to inquiries 13.1, and are you answering that, Ms. Swatsky?
Your Worship?
I'm sorry, what, Mayor?
Your Worship, I have my own administrative inquiry as per our new...
Oh, my apologies, I didn't write anything down.
Your Worship, point of order. We've missed question period. Item 12.
We did.
Okay. I'm going to back it up to question period. And who would like to talk first in regards to question period? Councillor Sobel?
If Councillor Peterson has one, then she can go ahead because her light was on first.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
I have to find my paper.
So, Your Worship, Council, earlier this year, Council voted in favor of a number of changes to our fees bylaw through bylaw 17-03, and specifically Schedule N. In that schedule, a new fee of $20 was initiated for all volunteers getting their criminal record checks done by the RCMP. I will not speak for anyone else on this council, but I'm quite prepared to admit that, in my opinion anyway, this was a mistake, and I regret voting in favor of this additional charge. Our volunteers are, in my opinion, a valuable asset to our community, and we should be doing whatever possible to entice them and express our gratitude to them for their contributions. Charging them money to allow them to volunteer is simply wrong, in my opinion, and my question to administration is whether a new bylaw can be returned to us for further discussion and possible amendments.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Ms. Swatsky?
Your Worship, absolutely, an amendment can come forward for a change in the fees of Schedule N.
Thank
Do
you.
you require a motion on that to bring that forth?
That's-
Administration? So,
Okay.
I would move that administration bring back a new bylaw in regards to, I'm sorry, Jennifer, what did you say?
Section
Sorry. Your Worship, it would be an amending bylaw to bylaw. I apologize, I gave you the wrong bylaw number earlier. It is bylaw 1321.
So my motion would be to request administration to return an amending bylaw which deals with the fees for volunteers to have their criminal records checked done by the RCMP pursuant to bylaw 13-21.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Graychuk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I did also get a lot of heat over this, and I agree with Councillor Sobel on that one. But it seems to me at the time that administration gave us some very good reasons as to why we should be doing that, raising the fees, and I can't, other than dollars and cents, I can't recall what they are. Do we bring those reasons back as to why we did it at the time?
I remember why. Yeah, well, what I remember when, are you telling me to be quiet? I will. So when Staff Sergeant O'Dwyer was speaking to us, I think that he made a definitive difference between volunteers and between people who just need it for employment. And we didn't really differentiate when we did the bylaw. Because he talked very eloquently about the costs involved in doing criminal record checks and how they weren't recouping the losses. And it was, but we didn't make a differentiation between volunteers and between the majority of them, which are people who are having to do it on a yearly basis for employment purposes. So I think that's why it's really valuable to bring it back. Yeah, because I don't think he was telling us that we should charge volunteers. He was saying it just costs a lot of money to do it. So, yeah, I'm in favor of it.
So if I may ask the question, the ones that he was asking about are related to what?
Staff Sergeant O'Dwyer just was talking about general costs. So he was saying it was just, they were not making the grade because they were spending inordinate amounts of time, which cost money, to do large numbers of criminal record checks for people. And he suggested that we raise the amount. But I don't think he expected us to raise it for volunteers. I don't think that was ever, I don't think it was something that he left with us. But I don't think it's not their main core of the issue. Would you say, Councillor Sobel? Like, I don't think it is.
I don't want
'cause-
to butt into other councillors here, but I did have a recent conversation with Staff Sergeant O'Dwyer on this very point, and the one of the issues was to get our rates or charges up to par with some of the other communities in the area. But I agree that I can't recall there being a complete differentiation between volunteers and regular applicants, and I think that's, in my opinion, that's where we missed the mark.
What I'm trying to differentiate is what isn't regular, what is the volunteer, and what are some of the other things that he charges for?
Visa, fingerprints they do a lot of them. Criminal records check for your work. There's a lot of those, but I think overall the volunteers is probably the most.
Access to vulnerable people.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of dropping, or breaking the two down. Thank you.
Councillor Walz?
No, Your Worship, I guess I'd like to have the question answered by Sergeant Dwyer as well, as to if they come in with a letter that states that this is for a volunteer service and you're volunteering for that, there shouldn't be a charge for that. And in the past, I know that you sent a letter off, or you received a letter and you went in there and you never got charged nothing, so and I guess I'd like that maybe to be looked at as well.
If I may, in regards to that charge, I do believe there is always a charge by the RCMP, a base charge?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, that's all, well, that's
No,
why.
you just get a letter from.
There is now.
There is now, okay.
You didn't have a letter?
Yeah.
And we charge $20?
Yep.
Deputy Mayor Blokland?
Thank you, Your Worship. I remember having to do this for the youth club about 4 odd years ago, and I paid $21. But my question is to administration, this bylaw went into effect, when did it go into effect? With the changes?
Your Worship, the bylaw was passed February 15th.
Of this year?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Are we prepared to reimburse those people, those volunteers then, before this bylaw?
What you can do, you can make an amendment to the motion when it comes forward, or ask administration to put that in the the direction to us.
I'm strictly talking about the volunteers,
Yeah, I
not
know.
for the other purposes.
I know.
I think you might see a little bit of backlash happening here if all of a sudden we change our minds on this bylaw, and then the ones that all paid $17 or $20, they're gonna want their money back.
Wouldn't be that many.
Well, I don't know, I'm just saying.
Well, I know where you're coming from, and I think we can think about that, whether or not we make a decision right here at this point. I don't know whether we need to. We are always making decisions that sometimes aren't in agreement with everybody, so we'll do what we can to help our community. Councillor Graychuk.
Just one more, when I was doing a criminal records check, I had to do one for picking my grandkids up at school, then I had to do another one for volunteering here, and another one to volunteer there. Are we with the authority that one check would do for everything? Or are we under that authority, or is that the RCMP?
Depends on the outcome of the record.
That's them,
They need one for each different organization.
is that the federal law, or is that, what is it, do you know?
It's pertinent to the organization.
Do we know that for a fact?
Yep. I do.
Only government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, where were we?
Voting.
Voting.
Call the question.
No further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank
Your
you.
worship?
Yes.
I have a second motion on this matter.
Go ahead.
I would also move that the practice of charging volunteers a fee to have their criminal records check done in order to volunteer be suspended until this bylaw is brought back before council and a decision made in this regard.
Good move.
Thank you.
We have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Councillor Fuel.
Thank you. Just a clarification, so that means if anyone is trying to volunteer to go on a committee now, they wouldn't have to pay that $20 until, okay, thanks, that's all I needed.
Councillor Graychuk.
Can you suspend the bylaw? Thank you.
Councillor Walls.
Your worship, a parliamentary question, does that suspend the entire bylaw, so we wouldn't be able to charge any fees or nothing?
No, Your Worship, I believe the motion was to suspend the charging of fees to volunteers for criminal record checks.
No further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Anything further, Councillor Sobel?
That's all I've got.
No? Okay, who was next? Councillor Peterson.
I just had two questions. One was to administration. I know that our CAO has been involved in with community members in the Glenwood area. I was wondering if you wanted to talk about what you've been doing. I'd just like to hear about what's happening.
Is that a question, Councillor?
That's a question. What's happening?
What's happening? So we've been looking into the situation there. I've been in discussion,
Out of order. Look at that.
talking to staff. We've asked staff to look at some measures to deal with watering as well as infrastructure in the area. We would propose, if council is agreeable, I've asked staff to look at bringing forward design engineering standards so we can move this year. And the purpose, one of the purposes of that, the 2018 capital budget has projects on the books to do infrastructure work in the area. We believe it's advantageous now to move quickly to take advantage of the good pricing that we're getting. And we'd like to be in a position where we can put out design and tenders this winter. So we would like to bring that forward. This would address water and sewer. And I've also been in discussion with staff and been out on my bike, done a reconnoiter of the tree situation. There's Russian elm, weeping birch, cottonwood, and other trees out there that are heritage trees, which I understand were developed, the heritage list was developed through a provincial initiative that we're looking into. So we're trying to ascertain where this came from and in order to propose a program to the citizens. So we're interested in that, so.
Thank you, I really appreciate that, and it's really proactive, and I'm sure that community is really, really appreciative. I have one more question, Your Worship.
Please.
That is, I was just wondering if we could get an update on the Park Road crossing.
Yes, Your Worship, I can answer that question. Administration has ordered speed signs for the Park Lane, Drive. They actually should be here this week, and we will be installing them as soon as they arrive. They are signs that indicate how fast drivers are going. We've ordered more signs than just that road. We've ordered them on Brent Boulevard too, for the rest of the school year. We're renting them at this time to see how they work, and after our term is up with the rentals, we'll evaluate how effective they are.
Thank you very much. I might have lied. I might have a third question, but it's for council.
By all means, Councillor Peterson.
So,
Go ahead.
the last question I have, it relates to the potential to do murals in the community, and there is an organization that that works with Wheatland Society for the Arts, and I'm aware of some of the work that they're doing in murals, in creating murals. And I know that Councillor Blockland had said one time that if they wanted to paint the cement wall in the beautiful wall in the back, and some other people in the community have been really interested. Councillor Graychuck has been a proponent. And this group has come in, and they have a very unique way of doing murals so that they can be inexpensively put up, repaired, moved, and I was just amazed and astounded at the good that they could do. And they now have a large contingent of youth working in programming at Wheatland Society for the Arts, so kind of serendipitous that those groups would come together. And I wanted to talk to Councillors Fuel and Sobel, who sit on the downtown revitalization, to just ask if that would be a good place for it to go for conversation and future collaboration. I just would ask your input for that, because I don't know where to go next with it.
Your Worship, if I may?
Please.
I think that would be a great starting point. I think with the contacts we've had in the downtown community and the regular meetings we have, I think that would be a good place to start. I think the idea is very intriguing. I've seen it done in other towns.
Councillor Sobel?
Thank you. Do you think the group that you're talking about would be interested in attending to make a presentation before the DDRC?
Yes, yeah, they said that they'd be very happy to hear what your desires are, what you're looking at, and they could also talk to you about the process that they utilize.
It'll be a little bit. We got to wait for our next meeting to
Yeah.
see if the committee is prepared to accept them, and then we'll send out an invitation if they are.
Thank you very much, councillors.
Ms. Swatsky?
Your Worship, just a point of order, the time is now past 9.
That's right.
Council needs a resolution to extend.
That's what I'm looking for, and I can't find it in there. Councillor Walls?
Your Worship, a point of clarification, we just modified the bylaw, so now we're now at 9:30, right?
Your Worship, my apologies.
Thank you.
Yes,
I was
we're good
looking,
to-
I'm
we're
like,
good to
we're okay.
9:30 now.
I haven't signed that bylaw yet.
Your Worship.
Detail.
Deputy Mayor?
You might have modified the bylaw, but we started at 6, not at 7.
Oh, why don't we just do this? Why don't we take a motion to extend, for how long are we allowed to extend? 1 hour? Okay. Councillor Walls, did I hear you make a motion that we're going to extend the meeting by 1 hour?
Verbatim, Your Worship, verbatim.
Thank you very much. We have a motion on the floor to extend the meeting by 1 hour. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Now, what was next?
I think there's one item left.
Actually, there's several. It's a good, I didn't hear what he said, so you'll have to clarify. So, pardon me?
I move to adjourn, Your Worship.
We have a motion to adjourn. Yes, I know we do.
You can't reverse a motion.
I know I can't, and I wasn't allowed to pretend that I hadn't heard what he said. You guys wouldn't let me. We have a motion to adjourn. It's not debatable, and it requires a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Motion is defeated, Councillor Sobel. This happens when we start to get a little bit tired.
Understand that we're adjourned, how can you vote on that motion? You already adjourned, why, we're gone, we're done. You can't vote on it. Anyway, another issue, let's continue.
Yeah, responses to inquiries, construction. Ms. Sawatsky. I hope I haven't, question period, yes, we went through that. Responses to inquiries, Ms. Sawatsky, please.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. Earlier this year, Councillor Sobel requested information from administration regarding construction zones and the lack of what appears to be the lack of enforcement in a construction zone. We're now bringing forward a reply to Councillor Sobel's inquiry. In consultation with our peace officers and members of our Planning and Development Department, there are a number of ways that administration deals with construction sites. Under Bylaw 1305, which is the Community Standards Bylaw, construction sites are governed to ensure that their site remains in proper condition. The bylaw reads that an owner of a premises or property under construction, renovation, or demolition shall ensure that the building materials and waste building materials on the premises are contained and secured in such a manner that prevents such material from being blown off or scattered throughout or from the property, and that an owner of a premise or property under construction or renovation shall ensure that waste building materials and other refuse are removed from the property or collected and securely contained in appropriate waste bins or containers on a daily basis. Our municipal enforcement officers monitor construction sites on a regular basis. They also respond to complaints on a case-by-case basis and address the complaint in the appropriate way, which usually ends up in a cleanup notice. Officers use their discretion when determining whether or not a site is unsightly. The procedure in dealing with an unsightly property and issuing a cleanup order is as follows. Either an officer has noticed an unsightly property or a complaint has come in by phone, email, or a citizen communication form. The officer, upon investigation, will respond to the complainant to advise them the next steps. The officer responds to the location, takes pictures, and makes notes of who the builder or developer is. If the officer deems that the area is unsightly, they will contact the developer by phone and then send a letter indicating what needs to take place in order to clean up the site. The reason that they contact them by phone is to start the process. We also send letters, but we like to contact by phone to start the process immediately. Bylaw 1305 states that an owner of a property has 14 days from the time that they receive notice or the letter to get the property cleaned up. The owner can ask for an extension due to weather, equipment, etc. The procedure takes time and it can't just be enforced immediately. Like we mentioned, it takes 14 days, or they have 14 days to clean up their site. If no action is taken to clean up the property owner and town will send in a contractor to clean up the property. The charges for the cleanup and an administration fee are then charged to the property owner. If they do not pay the charge, it is added onto their tax bill. Additionally, planning and development takes steps to monitor and control construction waste as well. Land Use Bylaw 1411 addresses construction sites, and it states that all construction sites shall be kept in a clean and tidy manner, and containers for the disposal of construction waste shall be provided on site in accordance with requirements of the approving authority. It has been explained that developers are notified when their development permit is issued of their requirements to keep their sites clean and tidy. In fact, it states it directly on the development permit. If it is noticed that by the department that the site is not kept in an acceptable manner, the department will contact the developer to have the site cleaned up. In the end, the goal of both departments is compliance and education to developers and builders to ensure that their properties are kept in an acceptable state. We are working currently on developing materials to give developers and builders to inform them of their requirements for keeping their sites in an acceptable manner. We've also included some background information within the response that was handed out to council in regards to a number of complaints that have been made and our responses to those complaints.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sawatsky. Councillor Sobel?
Thank you, and thank you for that, Jen. Just a couple of questions, and I don't want to put you on the spot here, but any idea how many incidents or how many complaints that our bylaw had to deal with in regards to this specific issue?
So in the report,
Not just from, like, complete, total for the year?
total complaints, not offhand, Your
No,
Worship, I don't know. I know that when there are complaints, officers do go out right away to check on the property, to determine whether or not action needs to be taken.
And the second question I had was in regards to the 14 days. Does that not, do you have any idea why there's such a lengthy period of time for this? It just seems like a long period of time to require compliance.
Your Worship, I don't know the reasoning behind it. The community standards bylaw indicates 14 days. Council can make amendments to that bylaw if they so choose.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sobel. And thank you very much for that report, Ms. Sawatsky. No further, go ahead, Councillor Sobel.
I just make a motion that council accept this report for information, Your Worship.
Thank you. We have motion to accept the report for information. All in favor? Carried. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just wondering if bylaw 1305 applies to the property on Lakeside Drive on Fifth Avenue, which is getting to be a pretty bad eyesore. Might not be a construction site yet, but it was used for storage of construction materials.
Your Worship, the bylaw addresses all properties within the community. There are specific sections for construction sites, but there's also sections within the bylaw for residential properties, commercial properties, etc. Everyone needs to ensure that they meet the requirements within the bylaw to keep their area clean and tidy. But there definitely is,
So do we need a
there's
complaint?
provision.
Do we need a complaint on that before that gets looked at?
We can have enforcement look into it, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blokeland. I'll take a motion to go in camera.
So moved.
We have a motion to go in camera under Freedom of Information, Protection of Privacy, Section 24 and Section 27. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much.